All right, we got YouTube up and going. Getting the podcast on. Sorry to everybody who was trying to listen to the podcast last night. Couldn't make the podcast happen yesterday. We should be good to go today. We're going to talk about another profound topic. And this one, if we be honest, this one's going to have people a little frustrated, possibly, whether you're people that rock with us or not, whether you're somebody who's a supporter or not. Just being honest, this is going to be a little challenging today. So just giving you a heads up, but hey. But just because it's challenging doesn't mean that we are, not loving you anymore. Matter of fact, if you love somebody, sometimes you got to tell them something that's challenging, right? So just want you to know that just because this might be something you don't want to hear or give us time to talk about it doesn't mean that we're saying anybody. And this is something that somebody shouldn't say, oh, skin color and all this stuff, and he's just saying this because this, or he's saying this because he's anti my stage, because we're not going to do something that caters. Matter of fact, we never really do anything that caters to one group or another. Hey, Shalom, Night Wolf, how you doing? Oh, so many of you jumping on. Wow, thank you to everybody who's on. Thank you for the likes, the shares, joining the community, doing all that. We appreciate you, right? But we're going to be a little challenging to you today, right? We're going to say something that's going to challenge you, challenge your system, challenge your belief, challenge your being an ally, whatever you want to call yourself, being somebody who's black enough, white enough, straight enough, whatever it is, religious enough, not religious enough, atheist enough, all these different terms that we have. We're going to challenge you on something as far as your thought process there. So please be aware that this is not something that's personal, that this is not something that we do to attack any group. We're not worried about all that stuff. Right, but we're gonna get into this. Let me check my signal real quick. Alrighty, so it looks like we're great on all levels. So before we get started, may the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart be acceptable in Yahweh's sight. He is our strength and our redeemer, and it's in His name, which is His authority, that we pray, praise, proclaim, project, and protect this message. Aman, Amen, Ashe, etc. Thank you for the compliments on the digs or whatever. Appreciate you all for being on today. Habari, Mimi Kofi, Nina Frakukanana the Wewe, Jambo, Aquaaba, Etesen, for those of you who know how to, what I'm saying as far as that. Ni hao, hola, mi nombre es Kofi, ¿cómo está? Bonjour, je m'appelle Kofi. Hotep, Boker Tov, Shalom, Shalom, Shalom. We appreciate you. We're thankful. We're grateful to have you guys on. And we're grateful to be able to speak with you. And Angelina, you got to do something better than that. Yep, see, you already got yourself messed over. So we're thankful, we're grateful. If you have questions, comments, or concerns that are actually relevant to what we're speaking of, as Minister Tamara always says, please make sure that you put it in the question mark box. If you're on TikTok, if you're on YouTube, obviously we're not doing YouTube Live yet, so you can feel free to put in the comment section. I'm in, Sister Tracy. And also too, if you're willing to. If you're on the podcast, you can call in through the podcast or the Podbean app, and if you're on live, or you can just put something in the chat. I will do my best. I'm only human, so I can only get to so many comments at a time. However, we're thankful and grateful to have all of you on. So, and once again, we give all praises to the Most High, Yahweh Elohim, who is Abba, Che, Bet. We give all honor to him for my wife, the Honorable Maya, who lives a life that's able to be honored. You can follow her. She's a herbalist, she's a healer, she's a chemist, and she's a biologist by degree, by the way, for those of you who say you have to, she has to go to college that you approve of and all that stuff. Well, she went to a great college in the capital of the United States of America, so you guys should be happy about that. And she can go ahead, and you can go ahead and check her out to be able to look what she's doing, et cetera, et cetera. She's at Bloom and Flourish, not A&D, but the letter N. You can follow her on TikTok, YouTube, and her website. That's Bloom and Flourish. And we give all praise for each and every one of you, even those who have come on just to be nothing but trolls, or those who consider us to be insignificant just because you disagreed or don't agree, even though you haven't heard me talk about what the topic is. We're appreciative to all of you who are coming on here as well. So, yeah, shadow banning does suck, but it is what it is, and it allows us to have certain people that come in looking for us that we're able to actually get into. Well, Pizza Man, I'm about to get to that. Patience, it's a virtue. We appreciate you for having that virtue. We really do. So once again, what we're going to speak on today specifically has to do with something a lot of people don't want to talk about, which is you can be against something and still be okay with it. All right? You can be against something and still be okay with it. Once again, you can be against something and still be okay with it. Right? Now that's something that a lot of people. Okay. So that's something a lot of people. Uh-oh. Hold on. Wait a minute. I'm sorry. I just messed up. I just messed something up. Hmm. Well, I'll try to see if I can undo that later. I just messed up. Somebody got something that they didn't deserve. So I hope I can fix that later. But you can be against something and still be okay with it. I sound like Joe Biden. Well, I don't know much about Joe Biden. I don't support Joe Biden. I don't support the left or the right as far as politically. So I don't know what you mean. I guess you're saying that I sound like somebody you don't want to hear. So that doesn't stop me from saying what I'm going to say. But maybe if you listen long enough, you'll be able to actually know what I'm saying. But you can be against something and still be okay with it, and it's because people have cognitive dissonance. So if you mean that it sounds like cognitive dissonance, I was pointing out the fact that people have cognitive dissonance, right? Is there a point to this statement? I don't know, Melissa. Is there a point to listening long enough that you might be able to hear something? Possibly, right? So you can be against something and still be okay with it. What do I mean? So somebody will say, man, I'm against the things that somebody's doing. I'm against the fact that they're mistreating me, this and that. But if you keep allowing the person around in your life, apparently you're okay with what you're against. Does that resonate? Does that make more sense? If you listen long enough, right? You said the first human remains found in Africa, so we're all African Americans. So America, did all the remains come from America? And is everybody in America African American? That doesn't even make sense. And did you start calling yourself African American after the 1970s and 80s when you were told to by your African American leadership? That's a weird statement. But once again, you can be against something, right, and still be okay with it. And a lot of people try to find ways to live in this cognitive dissonance, the space where I can be against it and still be okay with it. That's a cognitive dissonance place, right? So cognitive dissonance, right? You can be against something and still be okay with it. And a lot of people live that way, right? So a lot of people will say that I'm against a bad marriage, but you're okay with it because you keep doing things that keep you in a bad marriage, right? Like, see, even with that, you're against racism, so to speak, but you're okay with it. You know why you say, I'm saying there is no race? Well, then African American wouldn't be something you would say is African American. Now, if you're saying there's a human race and all that, Mr. David, I would just, all you have to do is just say, well, there's a system set up where people have insisted that competition based on color, that's what race, competition, and ism, a system, is out there. Maybe we should make sure that we squash that because whether you're white or black or anything in between, we should all love one another. That's a different way of saying that, hey, there is no such thing as race, or I don't see color or things like that, because that social construct is based on something that's real, which is I might look different than you, but I should still love you whether I look different than you. That's a lot different than saying there's no such thing as this thing that our children are being taught every day. But once again, we're okay with something and we're trying to be against it at the same time, right? We're okay with stuff, but we're trying to be against it. See, and even we can say this because people are okay with saying, I'm going to come against you for speaking racism, but I didn't even, if you guys remember, if you've been on here long enough, right? If you've been on here long, well, they talk like that in England. They talk like that in some places in South America. They talk like that all over the place, right? It's a worldwide problem. And I think that's the problem that we have is we're saying we're against an American government and we want the world to see what is going on, but they were okay with the rest of the world doing it, or we just don't know. But even if you think about the racism angle, I wasn't even going into the racism angle. I didn't say anything about racism, right? Yeah. So it can be a woman's choice. I get that. I'm against abortion. I think it's a woman's choice too, but I'm against abortion. So if somebody were to be like, "Hey, what do you feel?" I would say, "Look, the law of the land says that a woman can do whatever, and being a sovereign, I believe that you have the right to do stuff. But when you inflict harm upon a child, that's something you should think twice about. However, I do comprehend how law works. Therefore, she does something different. I'm against it. But then watch this. If she, which happens a lot with me because I do a lot of life coaching, if the sister comes and says, I feel bad about something that I did, then guess what? I'm not against her humanity, right? I'm okay, right? So I might be against the act that she did, but if she did something she feels bad about it, she wants to talk about it later on in life, or she has physical issues because of doing that, etc., guess what? We have a conversation, we help you out, we get you the things that you need. Because I'm not against loving you and your humanity. I might be against the missing of the mark. That's what a sin is. A sin is missing the mark, right? But I'm not against your humanity, right? But a lot of people are against murder, but then they say I'm okay with abortion simply because it's a woman's right. Like I'm not saying that you don't have the right to do it. I'm saying that you have to think about what you're talking about. You have to think about who even told you that this was something to be okay with. Ryan, that was clever. um, yeah, we've been on. Said I'm against the. Well, once again, so you're saying that you're okay? Yeah. So watch this. You can, and it can be a positive thing, right? I could be against taking a vaccine for myself, but as a sovereign, I'm okay with you having the right to take it. I'm still against you technically taking it, but I understand that you have that right to take it, right? But what I'm saying is that this works a lot different in a lot of areas because a lot of people are okay with the very thing that they say that they're against when it comes concerning their growth. The USA is doomed. Imbeciles waiting for the resurrection of the dead. Bye. Okay, right. So you're against. So watch this. Somebody comes on is against somebody who would probably call him an imbecile, but is okay with calling somebody else an imbecile. You see the cognitive dissonance? That's what we're dealing with. You see that? At the same time, though, this person probably is okay with being a United States citizen, although he says he's against the system that allows people to have free will to do whatever. But he's against freedom because or she, because it says Sylvia, so it could be a she. But basically, this person is against you and I being not part of a corporation, but being free. So this person lives in cognitive dissonance. You have to deal with that cognitive dissonance all the time. This person literally stopped. And this is what I was trying to get to in the first place. Like, think about what happens with a lot of people that are here. Like, people came on, saw how I present myself, and then I'm comfortable and confident presenting myself, right? And as soon as they saw that, they began to attack. Now, for the first few minutes, I was just saying hello, introducing myself, giving praise to the Most High. Before I could even introduce the topic, there were people that were already saying why they were against me. They were okay with looking me up and down, making a decision, deciding that they weren't going to listen and everything. Okay. All right, shalom, Derek. How you doing? Right? They had made up their decision to say everything about me, what I present, who's gonna be supportive of whatever it is, who's my family, my friends, calling me an imbecile, doing all these things, and had yet to even hear what we were going to speak on. Right? Consider the cognitive dissonance that they're okay with something that would be against, because if I were to say something about them, then when I say something and I don't understand their little short comment, because you're only limited in the characters you can use, then they say no, this is what I mean, because they're against me doing that to them. You hear what I'm saying? People that's what I'm saying. A lot of people are okay with what they're against. A lot of people are against with what they really are okay with. Somebody will say, I'm against these things. Shalom, Helen, shalom, C Cloud, shalom, Cole, how you doing? Right? People will say, I'm against. Yeah, hide behind a screen, right? But you come out in public and are willing to put a face to what you're saying and be there for others and put something on your back that's bigger than yourself and say we're going to grind to make sure people are better. And guess what? People will say I'm against that. I'm against that. But then when you start saying, well, you do this and that, well, I'm doing this for our community. I'm doing this for the USA. They're against what they're okay with. It doesn't make sense. It's cognitive dissonance. You said you're the first person I've seen actually talking to people, not staring blankly at the screen. Well, I guess that means we have good presentation. Thank you, right? Yeah, thank you, user 947. Appreciate it, right? So a lot of people are against what they're okay with, right? And they're okay with what they're against. You said you've been in a lot of communities, people willing to do the same stuff they hate when done to them. Yeah, once again, though, I guess. Well, I don't know. I guess you were just saying in general. I didn't say that one community is guilty of it and others not. You know. And those are the ones that make the false reports, right? Because they're okay with what they're against. And even think about that. People who lie and say that we're selling drugs online. Like, people have done that over and over again. That's why we couldn't be on live on TikTok the last time. Because somebody said, oh, yeah, you know, he's selling drugs. He's selling illegal stuff. Never once have I ever. Right? That's why legally I'm going to have to put together affidavits and stuff now to attack TikTok because TikTok keeps letting these liars go. Right? But never have I ever. Shalom, Mama. How you doing? We're praying for you. I don't know if you've made what you say in public. I think you did. But, you know, if you've made it public enough, you know, maybe we can pray for you on here before we get off today as a unit and check in on you as a unit. You know, but these are people who are not able to recognize and comprehend. Shalom, I'm sorry, what is it? I still don't have the name down yet. BT the Harbinger. Right. A lot of people, they're okay with what they're against. They're against with what they're okay with. Right. Yeah, we pray quite often and quite constantly. So we will make time to do so. You know, once again though, like, so people are against what they're for. They're for what they're against. It's a very interesting thing. Matter of fact, Paul talks about it. And look, I'm somebody that deals with it too. I'm not going to say that I'm not somebody who doesn't deal with it at all, because I identify with Paul on something that he said. Paul said, man, the things that I don't want to do are the things that I do, and the things that I do are the things that I don't want to do. He said, the things that I swear that I'm against end up being the things I'm okay with by my actions, and the things that I swear that I'm okay with end up by my actions being the things that I end up being against. That's what he was saying. Okay. All right. All right. Yeah, so that's my spiritual mother right there dealing with some stuff and trying to get better physically. So it's just that's Yara Wooding, I believe is the name, right? Yara Wooding 1. So, excuse me. So y'all make sure that you keep up with her in prayer. Yara, YARAWOODING. No, the number 1. If you want to send her a little message saying that you're praying for her, I would greatly appreciate that. Yeah, so, but people are against what they're for. They're for what they're against. People are okay with what they're against, and they're against what they're okay with. You know, this is why we have all these people that come on, and we hit these huge numbers to drop to start, right? And then as soon as we hit the huge number, it goes down, and then it starts creeping back up slowly throughout the thing, because people see, even some people see this and they go, oh, okay, he's going to tell me everything I want to hear. And then I start speaking universal truth, universal law, natural law, kingdom law, marital law, laws of attraction, law of first mention, right? Constitutional law. I start giving you things that cannot be changed. And then people get frustrated because they're against what they're for what they're against. They wanted their ears tickled. They wanted somebody to be able to come on here and say, yeah, this is exactly, I'm going to give it to you exactly what you want to hear. Every white man is evil, every this and that. And then I come on here and I say the exact opposite, right? And I say that, yeah, white people should be held accountable. However, I'm going to point out in scripture, hey, look, before you point out this with them, like, are you doing this and this, right? Before you keep talking about changing the system, Do you recognize that the system is not yours to change? You have a system that you're supposed to live inside of that never changes, and it has always been intact. It has always been righteous. It has always been great. Shalom, Sister Christina, how you doing? Like, there's a system, right? But people don't want to hear that. People want you to hear, we're going to change it from the inside. I heard somebody talking today, and I clicked like on my brother's video. He was talking. There was another brother, I forget the guy's name. Is a white man who is supposed to be championing the cause, and he's super atheist, and he's supposed to be championing the cause for black people, for us, of course, and trying to help white people to see that we need to dismantle the system, and all black people are asking from us is for them to dismantle the system that they still benefit from. And, we shouldn't be happy because whatever the woman was that told people from earlier in 2020 when they stormed the Capitol, what was that, January 6th or something like that, the day that everybody says will live in infamy and all that stuff. And you'll hear all this stuff going on. She was saying, I'm not going to go to prison because I have blonde hair and stuff like that. She was basically saying white women don't go to prison even if they do things that are detrimental. She only got 60 days, and he was out there. You guys are everybody's so excited and pointing the finger and saying, ha, 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 because you got 60 days. But she was right because she got white privilege, and therefore she only got 60 days. And there's people who are innocent right now that have been claimed innocent by the legal system and still legally are supposed to be on death row and stuff like that. And he's doing all this stuff, and you don't understand, and this is white spring, blah, blah. And you know what? I was listening to it, and while I appreciated him speaking up, first thing I said to myself is that you're still okay with your against, though. And all that stuff that you're saying, you're right, I guess, according to your system, and she should get more, because if black people are going to be killed for being innocent, right, then she should get more than 60 days for attacking your capital, right? That's your capital, not mine. Attacking what you put all that stock and value and worth in, right? At the end of the day, though, when I think about it, you're still okay with what you're against, because you're okay with trying to be a good American. And it's the system of America that causes the oppression. Right? Exactly. It's not our fault. And look, by the way, it's not people who live today who are white's fault just because you're white. Right? Like, you can break generational curses, like we can break generational curses. But I'm just saying, like, I didn't build a system of oppression. And you're telling me to get in the system of oppression and somehow change a system that was born oppressive. Right? Like, I can see. You see what I'm saying? Like, this is when people get it. I get the thing when people feel attacked because they're like, well, you're blaming me for something my grandparents did, even though that's not what we do. But because you've been taught to speak about white supremacy, or to speak about colonization, or to speak about his story versus the story, or to speak about all these different things, you've been taught so much about these things. It's really interesting when people do the I'm an island boy thing to me. Because some white dudes out there who don't even have this, by the way, like, if you look at their hair, they had to do very selective things with their hair to be able to trick it into somewhat looking like this, what looks naturally. I have a lot more of it. It's thicker and it's stronger than theirs. And I don't have this stuff, but it's weird that you would use the white. I guess I get it now. I saw one of them speaking today, and they were actually speaking like a human being today. It was interesting. I haven't heard them speak. They were actually pretty eloquent when they just sit down and they have, conversation. However, this person who's on here talking about Island Boy and all these people that come on, it's interesting. I get it now, but you see that this is natural. This is who I am. They had to do a whole bunch of stuff and add extensions and do all types of stuff to be able to kind of sort of look like it, and they sound fake. I am that I am. My people, we be Jamaican. All right, some of my people that Jamaican, we be Taino. We be Haitian. Right? You got to be a little better than that. Got to be a little better than that. Even more creative in the way you're making fun of people. But getting back to what we're talking about, and we got a little more time this rising, so feel free, if you're going to be with us for a while, we're going to dig in, whether we have a lot of people on here or not. We're going to dig in, but you said you just started reading My Grandmother's Hands, and this is talked about. There you go, right? So, but this is something I think people have to comprehend and get a little better at, and to comprehend more and to recognize more, that we are dealing, you're dealing with a system that was born and dipped, right, so to speak. It was dipped in oppression, right? 1776. Why? See, you've been lied to so much, right? And you got to understand, it's faith against faith. People are out here upset and frustrated at you because of your faith in something, but they have faith in something that's not real. You have to have cognitive dissonance to have faith that this system that was always oppressive is built so that you and I can be free. I mean, we can go deeper into Nephilims at some point later on. However, that's not my focus today, so I apologize if that's something that's going to kind of rattle your cage some. But maybe at some point we can definitely look at Nephilims and giants and the difference between the two when people try to put them together and theories on UFOs and aliens or which bones are bigger or different things like that. Sure, but I want you to think about that, right? I want you to think about that the Island Boys are from Cubed, or they're Cuban. Are they really? Even if they're Cuban, you're saying they live in Cuba right now? They were born in Cuba? Right? Because even people from Cuba, in Cuba, there are white Cubans and black Cubans. And part of the things that you hear that come out of Cuba when people be fighting against each other is, do I identify as white or the evil black? Kind of the same Dominican vibe, right? But anyways, they did do that. They removed our king. But once again, and we can talk a little bit about that because that's on topic. But once again, people are okay with their against. And so it's like you have to understand this system of oppression was dipped in it, right? You were taught that America fought for freedom. America was tired of being taxed without representation, and that's why they fought. But if that's the case, why isn't Washington, D.C. a state? Because Washington, D.C. has been telling you for decades now that they're tired of being something that's taxed, of people that are taxed but don't have representation. That's why they threw out a couple of senators to D.C. Now they have two senators. There used to be one, a black sister. Now I forget who the other one is, but they have two. Last time I checked. Could be wrong, maybe it's more now, but they don't have the right to vote. So you got a senator, but she can't vote. Right? Think about that. So we're gonna put a black woman in front of everybody. We're gonna put a black face. We're gonna put this black female. Black woman, most educated person in the United States of America. Here we go again. We're gonna put you in position. We're gonna say now you're represented, so you can be taxed, but we won't let you vote, so that people can be okay with what they're against. That's been happening for years. Right? That's not a new thing. That's been happening for years. But that's what they did. She's still in position. And people are like, well, I guess. Said, do I blame rap music? I don't blame rap music any more than I blame an opera. Are there operas out there that say that you should be able to kill somebody? Is there Terminator 1 and Terminator 2 and Terminator Genesis, Terminator, I don't even know all the names of them, right? Whatever all these Terminators are. If I wouldn't blame rap music anymore than I would blame that, because rap music seems to do the same thing. You got a bunch of actors out there. Some of them aren't actors, right? Just like the guy who, I forget the Spanish guy, the guy who was in, wasn't he in, what was that movie with Antonio Banderas when he got real popular with people where he was shooting people at the gun, with the guitar case that had a gun in it, whatever that was. I used to really like those movies when I was back in the movies. I can't remember the name of it, but y'all know what I'm talking about. If you have a certain age group, age range, that was right before he did the one with Sylvester Stallone, or right after it, or something like that. Desperado, Desperado. Yeah, and he came out and he was shooting people, and he had two other brothers, and then his two brothers ended up dying or something by the end, and he fell in love with the girl who was from Dusk Till Dawn that got popular, basically for being a stripper or whatever, to turn into a vampire. In the Quentin Tarantino movie where Quentin Tarantino was killing folk and being a pedophile and all that. And they tried to make you feel bad about it, but yeah, I don't blame rap music any more than I blame that. So if we're going to blame rap music, let's just be fair across the board. Because I blame the United States of America. The United States of America was the one that let people like Margaret Sanger off the hook and said that what she was doing was legal. So if I got to blame them, let's get into Margaret Sanger. Margaret Sanger, who straight up said that, hey, I don't like Jews and I don't like blacks, and I don't believe that they're going to be able to help their communities, and and I don't think that they're a help to anybody. They live like animals. We should make sure that they have less children. Turned it into a whole thing politically to where now people march down the street and they put her as the mother of who they are. If I'm gonna blame them, right? Like, because if I'm against it, I can't be okay with it. So I can't be okay with it across the board, because a lot of us are against, but we're okay with and we're okay with what we're against. If I'm gonna blame that, let's keep it 100. If I'm gonna blame that, I got to make sure that I blame. If we're gonna talk about feminism, well, let's stop dealing with the person they call the modern mother of feminism. Let's go all the way back to Susan B. Anthony and her friends. And Susan B. Anthony, who was the greatest feminist ever for a lot of people, black women and white women a lot. She was asked a question. She said, "Well, can you be supportive of black women, and can you be more supportive of black people who are supposed to be able to vote? Black men that are supposed to be able to vote already and aren't being allowed to vote and are having voter oppression and all this different stuff." And she said, "I would sooner give my right arm." This is what she said. "I would sooner give my right arm than to support a black person's to vote, or right to vote." She would give speeches saying, "How dare you give a black animal, this black beast, the right to vote, but you won't give your own woman the right to vote." Got a coin too, right? Just like all these other people. George Washington, he married his wife, Mary, because she had as many slaves as he did. That's why he married her. So he would double up in slaves. So he would go to 100 and something to 300 and something. He said it. That was one of the things that attracted him to her and made him think that they were a great match. That's what this country is based off of. So we're going to talk about blaming hip hop. Let's be fair across the board, because that stuff existed way before hip hop. And even the term hip hop is not a term that was made by the black community. Somebody else outside our community named that too. And we fell hook, line, and sinker for that. Now, I'm appreciative of rap music, by the way, because people don't understand hip hop is more than just rap music. So before you talk about hip hop, let's talk about that hip hop is 4 or 5 different things. You're talking about DJing, that's hip hop. You're talking about clothing, that's hip hop. You're talking about graffiti, art, that's hip hop. A lot of people think that hip hop is just one thing. You're talking about dancing, right? Pop, locking, and all that stuff. That we grew up with. That's hip hop. Then you also have the rap music, right? MCing. Now, there's a difference between a rapper and an MC, by the way. So that's why a lot of rappers out here don't get the respect that MCs get, right? If somebody has to write your lyrics for you and stuff, we don't even consider that to be an MC. An MC also has to be somebody that moves people. If you don't move people, then you're not an MC, you're just a rapper, right? So understand, right, when you talk about hip hop, you have to talk about a whole lot of different things. You try to focus on negative people within industry that, by the way, the industry is not even owned by the black people. The hip hop artists that you're trying to talk about, they're not even the people who own the stuff. Therefore, I've been in the studio. So you're talking to somebody like, I'm going to be coming up, now that I got free time again, not only the books are coming out, I've been telling y'all, books, music, a lot of stuff I've been sitting on because I just haven't had time to like finesse it, or not finesse it a little bit so that it can come out. So this stuff is going to be ready for you guys to hear some. You've heard some of it if you've been on certain things we've done throughout the year. You've heard me play some of it from here and there. Right, I actually have played some of our stuff, and people have been like, "Oh, what's that?" or whatever. And I've told people like, "Yeah, this is us." Right. So there's stuff I produced and stuff that I've actually put out there. Some of you heard me play piano. I can play piano, right? So we have stuff out there, right? So you'll hear that. But I'm telling you, I'm somebody who's traveled, who's been around the world playing music, who knows what it is to, how you're supposed to play the conga versus the djembe, right? If people are even cultured enough to figure out which one is which, right? I know which one came first. I know which piece of wood it's supposed to come from, right? And I'm here to tell you, I know the music industry. I've been in the studio. I know how this works. Where you have a producer come in, and the producer doesn't look like anybody in there, right? The producer doesn't wear what anybody wears. The producer has more money than what everybody has, and he's going to start telling you how to make your music and what you should make it about. And we'll say things like, "Hey, this year, I want you to make something for the B words." And forgive me, I don't know if children are watching. I don't want to be a bad example, but I was going to actually quote the word, but you guys know what the B word is, right? So come in and say, "I need you to make a song for the bees." And people look around, what is that? I need you to make a song for the bees. If your album going to come out, if we're going to support you, you're going to make a song for the bees. So that artist right then and there, with all of his people looking at him, are you going to do what he's saying do? And we're going to be complicit because we still going to help out with the music process. So all of us complicit in this, right? All of us sold out. But we're going to look at him because he's who we support. And we came here to support you. This is your vision, your goal, what you want to do with it. And he going to make a song with the bees, whatever that means. And then the guy hears the lyrics, the new lyrics on the song that was going to be about making the community better. And the guy says, "All right, cool. I like that." So the music isn't even controlled by the hip hop artist. Yeah, don't quote me, boy, because I ain't said, yeah. Dumb it down, right? He said, then you shut down if you don't comply. That's why Dave Chappelle walked away every time. Yeah, Uh-oh. I'm sorry. I guess I lost you guys. I was listening to you, or looking at your comments. I don't know when we lost the signal. Hopefully, it wasn't too much. You said Nipsey owned his own stuff. Yeah, he did, and he talked about a lot of stuff. But even think about by that time when he finally did have ownership over it completely, like what was his message by that point? Was he mentally all the way there? He was getting there, but was he mentally all the way there? No. And who were his people behind the scenes? Look at the people, the rich white people that were there who were telling him do this, or whatever. Now he did a lot of great stuff for his community. Don't get it twisted. But I'm not gonna act like Nipsey's message was 100% there. He was way more there than a lot of others. He was even talking about his people being Israel. Listen to some of his stuff, talking about Israel is waking up. We're learning who we are. He definitely says stuff like that for real, right? And because he was there, right? And that's really what it's about too, is to support the foundation. When you get yourself out there, we support people, right? Who are saying these things. So that's why I want to be careful. I don't want to put my mouth on Nipsey and make him a bad person. Because anybody who comes up with a store, whether it's a $5 and below store, where he's selling stuff that people are trying to go to Costco and aren't even getting at Costco prices, and he's giving you the same quality and giving it to you for $5 or less, and make sure he owns a whole strip that he's giving his community, right? There's a reason why a lot of people say that there has to be some kind of the police or the Illuminati or whatever look the other way, whatever you want to call it, because he got killed right in front of his own place like that by a guy who was jealous because he said, hey, I want you to put my music on. And he said, I can't just put your music on like that. Like, that's not what I'm here for. And I get that all the time. People, well, make sure you shout out this. Make sure you go to this website. Make sure you do this. Somebody came on last year. It made my family was frustrated. There was a person that came on last year, and we were telling about cryptocurrency, this and that. And the guy, tried to basically finesse it into, and I kind of allowed it, but my family had to show me, like, this guy was literally having people that were part of the community try and get them to go into his cryptocurrency thing that never really materialized. And I didn't really know about it or whatever. But all we had to do, instead of telling them all this different stuff, was just tell people like, yo, just get into this one specific type of cryptocurrency. You don't have to go through a machine to get it and pay them a percentage and hope you can get a percentage back. Just get it for yourself. And so that's why we started focusing on teaching cryptocurrency, because we had somebody who was out there messing with people and messing with their stuff. And so now here we go, where we're looking a certain way because somebody, quote unquote, in innocence, isn't doing what they're supposed to do with the people. You said Elohim, greatness and evil, and gave you free will to do as you please, but you will be held accountable, right? You'll be held accountable, right? But a lot of people don't want to talk about accountability. See, if I can be okay with what I'm against, and if I can be against what I'm okay with, if you want to be taught, just reach out to us. You can DM us, or you can hit us up at the information we're going to put up at the end of the video. Or look for hashtag FindKofi, hashtag FindKofi. And, go on Facebook, go on YouTube. The YouTube channel is actually named hashtag FindKofi. But just go somewhere and just let us know. We'll get back in touch with you ASAP. Like I said, I actually kind of sort of have a day off today, but after tomorrow, I'm pretty much done with not being able to focus on my community all day, every day. Like, that's going to be my goal. That's going to be my plan. I'm going to put myself into it. I'm going to trust the Most High that we've got enough support now to where, if necessary, whatever bills may need to be paid along the way, I'm not going to, unless I have to from time to time for something as far as family. I'm not worried about side hustles, part-time jobs anymore. Trying to dance for other people to see if somebody would like the jig. We're just going to do what we do, right? So I promise you, pretty much after tomorrow. So come Sunday, I'm just going to live in sovereignty, trust the Most High and what He says about the kingdom. And so that should mean that whatever you need me to be or whatever you need me to do, as far as what I'm called to do, right? I'm going to stay in my lane, right? I'm going to try my best. But, the guy came on, he proved to me that you have to make sure that you are against certain things, and you have to make sure. And I was trying to be nice, but it's like that he tried to turn that nice into something that could have easily turned our community apart. You said, what do I think about Christian ministers on TikTok when you consider Matthew 6:1-5? So Matthew 6:1-5 talks about alms, first of all, right? And then verse 5 talks about prayer, leading us into verses 9-13, 14, and 15, right? Which is the Lord's Prayer. So first of all, let's go ahead and make sure that we get the context of that correct, I would say. Because first and foremost, it's not talking about preaching a word. It's talking about alms. It says, don't be like the Pharisees, Sadducees, and scribes, right? A specific group of religious leaders who were being one thing, and not the other. You said, be careful not to practice your righteousness to be seen by others. It's talking about what's the context, though. What is the context? First of all, righteousness is what? Right? What does the word righteousness mean? The righteousness means, see, this is what I'm saying. Like, we're okay with things, so we have, but, or we're against it, but we end up being okay with what we're against. In a sense, where you're actually okay with what you're against, but you're super against it because you don't think you comprehend, or well, I want to say you don't comprehend. How about this? You're not using it contextually. Righteousness means, thank you, Minister Anais, it means to be in right legal standing. That's basically what righteousness means. So whenever you're talking about righteousness, you're talking about law. Okay? And by the way, we have to be in order of everything, because Matthew chapter 6, verses 1 through 5, we can't just put in a vacuum, can we? Right? Yahshua is speaking, and he's not speaking about a whole bunch of different things. He says your reward will be on earth. Okay, watch this. Matthew chapter 4, verse 23 is when he starts going to the synagogues in all Galilee, preaching and teaching about the kingdom. So he was going out in the public, preaching and teaching about the kingdom, right? Let's put this in context, right? Just stick with me. We got a whole 16-part thing that we just did on this. So, you're in the middle somewhere around like would have been like verse 10 or part 9 and part 10 put together when you're putting those verses together, what we did, all right? Matthew chapter 4, verse 23, he literally starts off by preaching the kingdom to people in Galilee, all over the place, healing, preaching, teaching, casting out demons, all those things. He deals with the sickness, then can deal with dis-ease, all these things. Then he takes them to a higher place, right? A place where they need to come up higher. There are people following him from all over the place, right? People following him from all over the place. Okay, right? And he takes them to a high mountain. Matthew chapter 5, verses 1 and 2. Matthew chapter 5, verse 3, he starts what we now call the Sermon on the Mount. And he's preaching to people who are not just Israelites, not just from Galilee. He's preaching to people who are Greek and all over the place. When you talk about your righteousness before men, let's get the context of it. The one who's speaking here. Because either you believe Yahshua has cognitive dissonance and therefore shouldn't be listened to, or you believe that he meant what he meant, and therefore we should take what he meant. Matthew chapter 5, verses 3 through 12. He says, the kingdom of heaven belongs to you. You've been told that you're poor in spirit, but guess what? I want you to know you should have confidence. The kingdom's in you. It's yours. He says, if you're meek, if you're humble, guess what? You are blessed, right? If you're mourning, you shall be comforted, right? If you're seeking, hungering and thirsting after right legal standing or righteousness, you shall be filled with righteousness, with right legal standing. You shall be filled with what you're seeking. All these things, right? And then he says, and when people speak against you and say all manner of evil against you, if it be for my name's sake, that means for my reputation, then guess what? You should rejoice and be exceeding glad. We keep on going, right? Verses 13 through 16. He says, therefore, since the kingdom belongs to you, understand that you're what? You're a light that's set on a hill. Therefore, you can't be hid. He says that what sense does it make to take a light and put something over it that smothers it to where you can't see it? People are going to see you. This is what Yahshua said, right? I'm not making this up. This is in your word, in your Bible, correct? So then he says, so people are going to see you where you are. Verses 17 through 20. Verse 17, then he starts dealing with law. Law does what? Law doesn't give right. Law protects rights. He says, don't pray to be seen. Once again, so everything else that I said doesn't matter. So everything that I've said doesn't matter. Everything that the Most High said doesn't matter up to that point, because you're stuck on don't pray to be seen. Where have we even talked about prayer yet? Have we even talked about prayer yet? I'm telling you what he's talking about, right? Am I wrong with what I'm talking about so far? Or do I have to make sure I agree with you? If you want an answer, then get an answer. You have the right to challenge me, sure. Try every spirit by the Spirit. But you don't want to, no, let your light shine. I get you. Okay, so allow me to just say what he's saying, right? I'm just saying what he's saying so far, correct? So allow me to keep on just saying what he's saying, right? This is what Yahshua said, who you might call Jesus or whatever. I don't know what your belief system is, but I'm just telling you what he said. Okay? So Yahshua then in verse 17 to 20 says what? In verse 17, he says, hey, okay, now make sure that you understand that I did not come to destroy the law, but I came that it might be fulfilled. Law protects rights. It doesn't give rights. Laws protect rights, unalienable rights, rights you can't be separated from. So make sure you understand I came to fulfill the law, right? Then Yahshua says in verse 18, not to change one jot or tittle of the law. That means not to change the most minuscule of measurements of it, or even to make sure that you change the way it was written. That tittle actually would be Yah, the hand of Yah, the way that Yah said, write it this way. We shouldn't even change that, right? All these versions that we have, he says you shouldn't have changed it in the beginning, right? Then verse 19, he comes behind that and he says what? He says, anyone who says that they're not about the law, right? He says that they are the least in the kingdom, especially if they teach that you shouldn't be about the law. He says if you live by the law and teach that you should be about the law, you're considered to be the greatest. Verse 20, then he says you should know more law than the scribes and Pharisees. Okay, right? So we still haven't even gotten to prayer, but we're setting the context of what he's talking about. He's literally going around to all of Galilee. He has a crowd of people that are following him, right? There's a crowd of people following him, not just from Israel, but from all over this part of the world. Africa, Asia, Europe. It wouldn't have been called those things back then, right? Israel, all these different places. They're following him from everywhere, right? And so he's speaking on this. Then we get to verses 21 through 26, where he starts saying, don't get distracted by being in debt, or being angry, right? He says, so a lot of you have anger issues that cause you to be in debt with things. You try to give me an offering, you can't even give me an offering. Get your house in order, put the offering down, and go and get it right with your brother, then come back to me, and then we can go ahead and have a conversation, right? Then the next few verses, I believe that's verses 27 through 32, he speaks on marriage. We got an issue because you guys are adulterous. You guys are trying to get out of marriage. You guys aren't trying to be faithful to one another. And the public is seeing this. The kingdom is being destroyed because you guys are falling into other traps that are Greco-Roman or that are pagan or that are whatever. You're falling into a bunch of different things, right? Yeah, I see you, Mrs. Mack. So after that, then verses 33 through 37, I believe, is when he starts talking about, so stop swearing on this or that. Don't swear on heaven because that's where his throne is. Don't swear on earth because that's his footstool. Don't swear on this. You don't got to swear on your mama's grave. You don't got to do all that. Let your yea mean yea and your nay mean nay. Do your conversation. In other words, your conversation should be your actions. 93% of your conversation, scientifically speaking, is nonverbal. What you do is righteous, and what you say is righteous, but more what you do is going to be judged than what you say, because what you say is only 7% of the entire thing. And you need to be holy. You need to be whole. You need to be one, right? Then the verses after that, which I believe close out, before we get to what you started quoting, the verses after that deal with, if you're going to deal with hurt people, right? If you get struck on the cheek, can you extend the other one? In other words, like if you're going to deal with hurt people, understand that hurt people are going to hurt you, even if they're trying to get better, right? So therefore, when you do your alms before men, when you do your alms, don't do them before men. Don't do it specifically just so that people will do. Now, here's a question for you. Do you believe, if you believe that your alms and all the stuff that we're talking about, you said is it just what you do or what you do not do as well? Well, yes, right. Actions, law. That's what we're talking about, law and action and things, right? So now the action of prayer, which is what? Communication. Because a lot of times we break verses apart, forgetting that chapters and verses didn't exist when this stuff was originally written or said. This was Yashfar just speaking. You said what you say can be like what I do. It's not what goes into a man that spoils him. It's what comes out. Once again, read that verse. Read that verse. We'll go to that verse too, right? And then I'm going to go ahead and go to other people, because I think I've focused long enough on making sure you see where we're coming from. But let's deal with what you're going before we jump somewhere else, right? Because that's what Matthew chapter 5, somewhere like verses 1 through 14, something like that, right? But no, not Matthew chapter 5, Matthew chapter 15, something like that. We'll find it in a second. Matthew chapter 15 verses 1 through 14 or something deals with that. But let's just deal with where you are now, right? Let's keep where you are now, because you quoted where we are now. Matthew chapter 6, verses 1 through 5, verses 1 through 4, talking about alms. So therefore, don't be like the hypocrites who sound the trumpet. It didn't say, by the way, hypocrite means that they live beneath their standard. So number one, don't be like the people who live beneath their standard. They are already not able to pray the way that you think that they're praying. They're making it look good because they sound the trumpet. So question for you about you trying to say that basically myself or others that come on social media shouldn't say something. Are you saying we shouldn't come and speak the word? Are you saying we're not supposed to preach? Are you saying we shouldn't pray for anybody? Are you saying that you, right? Because Yashvai literally did all those things. Sound the trumpet is what? To be seen in a specific manner. In a specific manner. What is sound? Who sounds the trumpet? Who do you sound the trumpet for when they come down the street? See, you're talking about like everybody in there. Once again, get the concept of it. These are people that are listening to him that were just told that the kingdom of heaven didn't even belong to them. They just are learning through his sermon the kingdom of heaven belongs to them. Who sounds the trumpet? Okay, well, it's fine. I'm not worried about validation. If I was worried about validation, I would have stopped doing what I'm doing and not have to have several channels on several different places. So you're somebody who's, I guess, accusing myself or others of certain things, or maybe you see me doing this or that, or maybe you're saying what I think about other people. I don't know. At this point, it seems like we're not really focusing because I'm answering your question, and before I can answer it, you're trying to, like, it seems like we're shifting the goalpost. So thank you for the question. Appreciate you. I really don't know what else to do with that. By the way, for everybody, when he's talking about Matthew chapter 15, verses 1 through 11, the conversation goes like this. Him and his disciples are chilling. These same hypocrites, religious leaders, come to him and say, hey, what is it that, or why don't you keep up our traditions, what we say you should do? He said, well, why would I keep up what your ancestors say you should do, and you don't even follow law? And then he gets on about the law, and then he brings a whole crowd to him. Which is another thing like this person doesn't want to talk about. He brings a whole crowd. He said he could actually read that Matthew chapter 15. I would say verses like 1 through 15 or something like that to make sure you get it. I believe that's the scripture. Matter of fact, let me make sure before we move on, because I promise you, if you just read it for yourself, you'll see what I'm saying. So he basically says, okay, he calls the crowd over. There it is, and he calls the crowd over. Matthew chapter 15, read like verses 1 through 13, something like that. You'll get the entire context. He calls the crowd over. The same person that, like, so this kind of goes against the argument. It's cognitive dissonance. You can't speak about the word or whatever. You can't do alms. Alms is what you give. So if you want to say I'm giving a word, then I mean Yashua is against his own word. He has cognitive dissonance because he's preaching a word. But nevertheless, he calls out a whole bunch of people. Okay, well, I don't know. Then like I said, it's difficult. I don't know what to be able to take or not take. So I apologize if I'm coming off as somebody against. I just am not able to comprehend what's going on. But maybe you're talking about people who are like saying, buy my water or do this or whatever online. I don't know. But if you go to Matthew chapter 15 and you read that, you'll see that he calls out these religious leaders in front of everybody and brings them over and says, hey, everybody come here and look. You see these people over here trying to get us on law and trying to talk all this stuff or whatever, right? Man, don't worry as much as what's going inside you or like what's going in your ears, right? Or what you're being fed, right? You think that he's talking about it has to go through your mouth. He's like, man, be careful what these people are saying. It's not what goes in a man. He said, but it's what comes out. Like, you might hear some stuff, be able to learn how to digest this stuff and get the kingdom in you. But he said, you know what? Like, be careful what comes out. And people try to use this all the time to be like, I don't even have to eat righteously. I don't have to worry about this and blah, blah. Like, that's not what that's saying. It's a whole different context. You know what I'm saying? But a lot of times we're okay with what we're against, and we're against with what we're okay with, even if it just comes out of we might not have the proper context. You know, so we'll use that verse and not even read the other verses around it. But if you take where we just went from Matthew chapter 4, verse 23, and then go all the way straight through to Matthew chapter 15, it's a different, 15 verse 12, 13, it's a different mindset. He's talking about legal stuff. He's talking about righteousness. He said, he literally told the religious leaders, they said, you don't keep the customs and traditions of our elders. That's what they tell him. And he says, why would I keep the customs and traditions of your elders when you and your elders don't obey the law? That's what he legit says before they get into that conversation. You see that? He said the Pharisees had scorned at the disciples for eating with their hands, right? Yeah, that wasn't a law. That was a custom or tradition. Right. Yeah. And Yeshua defended the disciples against the Pharisees by judging them. Right. Judging them against something that's not even the law. He judged the Pharisees by the law. They said, keep our customs and traditions. You see that? They said, keep our customs and traditions. He said, I don't keep customs and traditions that don't keep the law. That's what he said. That's what he said. So, you know, the context is different. People are trying to read this as far as we're going to break free of it. No, he literally said, they said custom traditions. He said law. They said our ancestors keep these traditions. He said law. He said, don't talk to me about your ancestors' traditions and you don't keep my law. They keep the law. You're talking about a tradition. plucking grain, there's nothing that says you can't pluck grain on the Sabbath. You took it to that level where you want people to believe that just plucking grain is going to cause you to be in some hellish type of situation. Therefore, you'd rather people go hungry, sitting there looking at something they could eat. I want to eat it. I want to grow. I want a word. I want to manifest. I want to do this. But you know what? It's Saturday. Oh, it's Saturday. And it's between 6 p.m. Friday. It's between 6 p.m. Saturday. I really wish I could call somebody up. I really wish I could send this email. I really wish I could get my car fixed. But you know what? Even though there's a car company that's already open, and therefore I'm not forcing them to work, like they would already be open, they would already be getting paid. So maybe I can get my car fixed. But you know what? I'll just have to deal with a broke down car until my employer will give me a day off. Like, you want people to think that the Sabbath was made, or that they were made for the Sabbath, which Yahshua said that the Sabbath was not made. We were not made for the Sabbath. The Sabbath was made for us. I'm Shabbat Shalom all day, right? 6 o'clock p.m. It's Shabbat time. It doesn't mean that if, like he said, if my ox falls into a ditch, that I'm just going to let it sit there, right? Like, I'm going to make sure that if this thing is going to take care of my family, what kind of fool would allow his family to die and think that Yahweh is thinking that they've done the righteous thing? And then right, you could say he heals anytime, because here's an interesting thing that comes right after that. There's somebody that even talks about, you say you're this, you say you're that, and you say, and he said, man, you can say I'm of the devil and all this stuff, and the kingdom divided against itself can't stand. Then they say other things, well, you're of the devil. He was like, I'm of the devil, man, shoot, or I say I can forgive. Yeah, I have the right to forgive because of who I am, but you don't believe I can forgive? Well, how about I go past just forgiving them? I'm gonna heal them. Boom. Right? Treating people like human beings. But and religion, just everybody's religious, by the way, because religion just means what you repetitively do as a legion. You can repetitively take a shower. You can religiously take a shower, right? A lot of people do that. Therefore, it's a religious activity. But we're not going to sit here and act like everybody's doing righteous things or thinking the right way, or thinking within context. We're talking about customs and traditions, and people are sitting up here talking about, he defended them for a custom or tradition. Yeah, look at it. Look more carefully when Yahshua speaks to these people. See what he says. Don't take what you want it to mean. Look at what it says. Don't take what now this new NIV thing does, which the NIV erases 100+ verses and tells you on purpose, we erased them. We don't like them. Because they're not even following, like, people don't even know. Do you know that there are 2 types of Bibles that people are going off of? When we're talking about the scrolls, do you know that there are actually 2 different types of Bibles that are out there? There's actually a Bible that was by people called the Alexandrians. The Alexandrians didn't believe in the resurrection, didn't believe that Yahshua and the Father were one, didn't believe in the Trinity, and so they had certain beliefs, and they held other beliefs that they took from Babylonian Talmudic principles, and so they wrote a Bible based off of it. And so there's a lot of Bibles that are based off of that rather than that are based off of the actual Tanakh. And a lot of people don't even know. So you got all these versions of the Bible and don't even know. First of all, is this an Alexandrian Bible? Or is this an actual Bible? Then we can go to, are you only stuck in 66 books? Or do you know that there are other books that come with this? The Kefir Bible's fine, yeah. I know somebody asked me about Nephilim earlier. Like I said, we can have, that's not really what I'm called. That's not what my assignment is for today, but we can find some other place to try and stick that conversation in, right? But that's why I say, if you want to look at one, look at the King James Version, the 1611 version, the original 1611 King James Version, right? And they will tell you, they're even honest in the spelling of words. That's why they say things like thus and thine and thee. They didn't use thus, thine, and thee that often on the street. If you were very fancy, you would use those words, or if you were using them in plays and stuff. But they used thus, thine, and thee when they were writing any kind of literature, especially the Bible that was supposed to be highbrow, because they wanted you to understand that thus, thine, thee meant singular, and you, your, except ye, etc., it meant plural. So a lot of people will see a word and they'll say you. So they'll say, he's talking to you, sister so-and-so. He's talking to you, brother so-and-so. That's not actually what they did. If they said thus, thine, and thee, they were saying, I'm talking to thus. I'm talking to thus. I'm talking to thee. I'm talking to thine. This is thine. So when they say thine is the glory, right? For thine is the kingdom. That's why they're saying it. Singular. It only belongs to thine. To thee. It only belongs to thee. But when they say this is yours, they're talking about family. They're talking about this is all of you got to get a piece of it. When they say, you say, how can a man rob Elohim, right? Because he's so righteous and pure, so and he's so high up. How can we do this? How can we rob somebody who's like that? And he says, but you, plural, all of you have robbed me through tithes and offering, right? He's saying specific things. Thee, thine, right? Thus, etc. Singular. You, your, ye, etc. Plural. Right? It's a context thing. So people are even trying to tell us this stuff, right? And we're saying this. So he says, when you do yourself, he's talking to the people, all the people, while we're having a conversation about not speaking the truth and not speaking the word before men, and he's talking about all the people. You, when you guys who are listening to me, everybody here, now that you've heard this, I need you to get this. Hey, don't be like those hypocrites over there, those hypocrites that live underneath the criteria that they set for you. So here come the people who are supposed to be going back to the Matthew chapter 15 thing, right? You can be against something and still be okay with it. Here you are against law because you wrote a law out of your own custom that said that you're supposed to wash your hands up to the elbow, right? And he says, well, don't come at me with that, because the law that supposedly you're supposed to keep, not the law you made up, but the one that you and your forefathers promised to keep, you don't even keep the law. Matter of fact, he even said you don't even, this is us going to another place. I think this is Malachi. But talking about people don't even keep the law of their fathers. Your fathers used to keep this law. Talking about this is your people. Israel, hear what I'm saying. Your people used to keep this law. China, hear what I'm saying. Go back and look at your Chinese characters and see what words mean what. See that when they say, that when they talk about garden, right? When in Chinese characters, garden, they have to put two characters together. They have to put man and west, because they believe that the Garden of Eden came from the west of them and man had to come from them. When they talk about family, they have to have three characters come together. 8 people. They have to have 8 boats and 8 boat and water, which means that they believe that there was 8 people on the boat in the water. Now, if you go back to ancient Chinese religion, before, if we're going to use that term, before somebody else, right, brought that religion on them, their original religion, they believed in Noah, Shem, and Ham. Right? They believed in Shangdi, which is their version of one Elohim. If you even want to look back, see, Baal wasn't something that was considered to be bad in the Bible at one point, because Abraham, when he gave the tithe to Melchizedek, when he gave that tithe to him, he actually was given to somebody who worshiped Baal. But Baal back then for them was the Most High. It wasn't until they started perverting who Baal was that then he started saying, I hate Baal. And in Revelation, he starts talking about, I hate Baal, because he hates what Baal has become. But let's be honest, he hates what a lot of people have done with his word too. Right? He hates what a lot of people have done with his word too. He hates the people who have taken it from where there was one Elohim, and now everybody has changed it into whatever they want, where they worship the creation, where they worship the creator, because they're okay with the creation, right, while they're against the creator. Because you're okay with what you're against, and you're against what you're okay with. We went to all these other places, and really, I wasn't even trying to go to some of this place, but we praise Yah. We thank you for the questions. We thank the Holy Spirit, Ruach HaKodesh, for helping us with this, as she always does. I'm thankful and grateful for the opportunity, right? Like, you got to understand, yes, the universe. Yeah, even when we talked about the universe, what does universe mean? Uni, one, verse, spoken sentence. Therefore, if you're going to talk about the universe, you can't talk about the universe without a single spoken sentence. You said El would have been a higher priest than Melchizedek? Well, obviously, but he wasn't he was still giving a tithe to somebody that El or Elohim, etc., would, approve of, or else Abraham, who follows Elohim, wouldn't have given a tithe or a tribute to this person. And he was putting a down payment, right? He was being legal. He put a down payment to somebody that was in Canaan. Why is that important? Because later on, his seed is going to come looking for that what they put the down payment on. They're going to live in Canaan, right? Right? Like, but people are against what they're okay with. They're okay with what they're against because we have cognitive dissonance, and people have taught us to do this. Amen, Fred. Like, people have taught us to be in this position of releasing power. That's why it says you got a form of Elohim and deny the power thereof. You got a form of Elohim, still denying the power. Should be more powerful, should be able to do more things, should be able to grow, should be able to cause a lot more things to be able to happen for your society. But you can't. You got a form of it, but you deny the power thereof. You don't have any power in it. All these people talking about all these forms of Elohim. I don't want the form of Elohim. I want him. I want Yahweh. I don't need a form of it. Right? A form of it ain't gonna do me no good when I need the whole thing. That's why I need to be holy, holistic. I don't need a form of it. I need the whole thing. I don't need a form of a wife. A lot of people got a form of a wife, laying down in the bed with the form. I need a wife. I become one with her, and she becomes one with me. You got a form of a husband, hugging the form, talking about I feel good in the form's arms or whatever. But then when he ain't the real thing, then you like, I don't understand. We've been in this for 20 years. I'm not, because he wasn't what you wanted at first. But you got a form of a husband. You don't need a form of something. You need the whole thing. Have you even been taught what a husband is according to the Bible? A lot of people be, well, this one scripture. No. In our culture, what is a husband? Because you have to be a husband before you get married. In our culture, what is a wife? Because you have to be a wife before you get married. People are okay with walking down the aisle with people that are not what they want. Because you shouldn't become a husband when you walk down the aisle. You should already be approved as a husband so that when you get married, marriage is sex. When you have sex, you are simply just becoming one with what already is. That's a word right there. Somebody catch that. One of you preachers over here. That's a message right there. You might want to take that. Right? I might want to take that. That's a message. Thank you, Ruach HaKodesh. Hallelujah. Think about that. You're supposed to be one with what already is. Let me stop before I get too excited. Right? But that's like real talk. I don't know if I can't not get too excited about the word. I love the word. But real talk. Like he should be a husband already. Do you know what that's supposed to be? She should be a wife already. Do you know what that's supposed to be? You said get excited. Right? Real talk. Do you know what that's supposed to be? Are you already approved as a husband? Are you already a protector? Uh-oh. Are you already somebody who studies the word? Uh-oh. Are you already somebody who prays? Uh-oh. Are you already somebody who opens doors? Right? If you open doors in the physical, guess what that manifests into? It teaches you how to start doing it in the spiritual. It starts teaching you how to do that with the family. I open the door everywhere I go. Well, if my mindset is wherever I go, I got to open the door for my wife and my children to come through before I go through it. But I'm the first person to touch the door, simply to open the door. Well, that means when I got bills now, I got to be the first person to touch these bills so I can open that door so that they can keep on moving too. And when I get knowledge, it means I can't leave my family behind. I got to go and have Bible study with them. They got to have this knowledge too. So we got to walk this together, and I got to open the door. And I got to touch it first. I got to study it, make sure it's good, make sure it's not hot, make sure it's not going to burn. All right, everything seems to be good inside. I'm going to open it. I'm going to look inside. I'm going to check it out. I might take a couple steps in. Everything's good. Hey, this is great. Let's go through the sovereignty piece. Hey, let's grow our own food. Hey, let's make sure that we get back to our culture. Hey, let's make sure we dress a certain way. And I'm telling you, like I get this from husbands all the time. Husbands will ask me, life coaching sessions, one-on-one stuff, etc. Man, Kofi, she won't do this and she won't do that. And I swear, and you know what I tell them? I'm like, look, real talk. And y'all know how I love my wife, right? But my wife, I asked her permission to start growing my hair and start being who I am. And I was like, look, I'm your husband. And I told you the vision was something I didn't know what it would turn into. But, I want you to know this is where I'm going. This is where I'm headed. I've been kind of afraid to do this because I know a lot of people are going to do it. But as long as you and the Most High are okay with it. And she gave me permission. It was like, do what you do. I think you look sexy the way it is with your haircut and blah, blah. But at the same time, I think it's sexy with you being you. And I was like, once I heard that, I was like, all right, I'm going to do this, right? But it doesn't mean that she started dressing like I was dressing right off the top. It didn't mean that she necessarily started believing every single thing that I was saying. It didn't mean that she wasn't ready to say, or she was ready as soon as I said Yahweh to say Yahweh, as soon as I said Elohim to say Elohim, as soon as I stopped saying God because God is a German deity, that she didn't stop saying or whatever. Like, it didn't mean it, right? But it meant I had to be consistent. I had to prove consistency. And when I proved consistency and she started seeing the results, because at first it was hard when I was like, yo, I'm going to give up a lot of stuff and it's going to hurt financially like a little bit. Like I'm going to be willing to walk away from some things that I can't touch anymore because of what I'm called to do. And it didn't necessarily, right? It didn't necessarily, okay, thanks, Fred. It didn't necessarily, right? Like mean that I was a bad person, this and that, but she was like, okay, I might have to walk away, or not even walk away, but I'm sorry, but it was hard and difficult to deal with some things, and also I wasn't all the way there before I started like fully committing either, which meant that it's like, okay, you might be changing some, like, is this a real you? Is this like I like what I had, and you were consistent in certain things or whatever, but are you still going to be consistent? Now you're dealing with all these people, are you still going to be consistent? Like, there's a lot that goes into it. I had to prove myself. She had to see, oh, this makes sense. I had to show her on paper. I had to have more conversations with her. Y'all thought when we were doing so many lives and videos, we were doing way more than what we did now at one point. And you guys would think that, man, like, how does he do it? I was sitting there doing this with her. And every step that I made, I have to make sure it was understanding. Like every step that I make is purpose. Every step that I make is vision. Every step that I make, I value it. Every step that I make, I pray about it. Every step that I make, it's gonna be something that makes you stronger. Every step that I make, you're gonna start seeing changes in other people's lives. And when you see people changing other people's lives, understand that doesn't mean they're gonna get more of me. They're gonna, because in the past, when I was doing a church thing, I was giving them more of me. But guess what? I'm going to give them what they need, but you always going to get more on the next step, right? If I give somebody $30 because we're going to bless them with it, that means that you got to get about $300, right? I got to make sure that every step that I'm making, you're going to see that you get more. I had to do that. You're going to have to do that, right? And I had to show her that I was against it and not okay with it. So if I'm against it on this step, the next step, I'm still against being out too late. I'm still against being out with the fellas too long. I'm still against not being about stuff. I'm still against not, cursing and stuff. I'm still against every step I take. I don't show that I'm cursing here, but then also I'm not cursing in front of everybody, but then when we came home, I'm cursing you out. That can't be the deal. Like I'm against it and I'm against it. I'm not against it and then okay with it. I'm against it and I'm against it. Every step I'm taking. I don't know why I'm acting like you guys can see my feet. I guess that's for me. But I'm looking at my feet as I'm doing this because I'm literally thinking about I had to step this thing. I had to walk this thing out. Even in the Greek, the word walk means live as well. It doubles. So when it says the just shall live by faith, it's about the just shall walk by faith. Every step I took, it was a faith step. It was a faith walk. It was a faith life. And it still is. And now the increase is showing up. That's why, by the way, with the gentleman was talking about, I don't know if he's still on here or not. I feel like his name was Justin and I can't remember. But when you were talking about that stuff, even when you speak on that, it also says that when I do this walk that a lot of people don't see. You see, it also says that he shall what? He shall bring me before men. He shall give me this heaviness, this weight, this glory. He shall present me in front of men. So even the stuff you're talking about that we should be doing behind the scenes, if you want to be 100% accurate about it, as I'm walking behind the scenes, it says that he's going to bring me before men. Now, people don't know what my challenges were. People don't know how close I might have been to losing my wife at one point. People might not know the inconsistencies in my life, even when I was up preaching a long time ago, before I was even on social media. People might not know the issues with pornography and lust issues and things that I had or whatever. Robert was the name. Okay, sorry. So whatever it is, like people may not know these things about, but they don't know. I had to go through a lot of walk behind the scenes to get a lot of things right. And still, I'm not perfect, right? There's a lot of challenges I'm going through right now. Right? There's not talking about just as far as like my faith walk. I'm talking about as far as enemies coming against me. You guys just see the people that come on here online. I'm talking about police that try to show up places that I'm at. I'm talking about people who are trying to read my license plates all the time, trying to figure out a way to make sure that they can take us out. I'm talking about people who are busy telling me, hey, don't go out there and step out on faith like you're about to, because you think you guys have seen me out on faith before and traveling before. I'm telling you, like, we're about to step out on faith and trust in you guys and trust in the Most High and trust in His system in a manner that we've never done. And people are saying, don't do it, don't do it. I'm telling you, like, I'm getting all this stuff, people showing up to the lives that we're doing, to the men's, the Brothers in Black thing we just did, what was it, last Saturday, and all this different stuff, and people calling up family members, man, you sounded great when you were speaking and blah, blah, but really when it comes to Christmas and when it comes to Halloween, this is where my heart is and blah, like real challenging you. People don't know what's going on behind the scenes. But I'm still going to do what I'm supposed to do. And when I come before you in public, the Most High says, the stuff you're doing behind the scenes, don't worry. Deal with that stuff there. Do your alms, have your prayers and stuff. But in both senses, when you look at Matthew chapter 5, verses 1 through 4, or Matthew chapter 6, verses 1 through 4, or Matthew chapter 6, verses 5 through 8, and both of them, he says, I'm going to show people in public the ability that you have, the governance that you have, the mindset that you have, the spirit that you have. So when somebody says, oh, you got to do everything behind the scenes, yeah, take care of yours. Don't do stuff just so that people can see it. But the Most High doesn't say that you're not going to be a light. And people don't want to hear that, right? But people are against what they're for. They're for what they're against. Real talk. Thank you, Carmen. I appreciate that, right? But people are don't comprehend. Like, you got to make a decision in your mind, right? That's why the Bible says stuff like, choose ye this day. The word day means period of time. Choose ye in this moment. This is the moment that you can choose who you will serve. Who you will serve is going to give you the result that you get. Today is the day you choose. Choose ye this day if you're going to tithe to give an offering or not. It don't have to be to us. I'm talking about to whomever, right? Because you're giving to charities anyways. Or you're giving the stuff, charity is just sacrificing. You out there sacrificing to make sure that you can get that hard-earned money, and then you turn it around after you get all this money taken away from taxes, and the little bit you got left over, you're going to go ahead and serve somebody that's serving alcohol. You're going to serve Budweiser. So just choose ye this day, because if you're going to serve Budweiser, don't be upset when you get Budweiser results. Because you're okay with what you're against. Now, and all that, if you notice, I'm now just finally, I wasn't trying to deal with it at all in the beginning. If you notice, I wanted to take my hands off it because I didn't want people to believe that all we were talking about today was racism and stuff like that. But real talk, how are you going to be okay with America and you're not against racism? Salah. How are you going to be with America? I'm not saying you can't be a citizen of the United States of America on paper, but hear what I'm saying. How are you going to be gung-ho? I'm proud to be an American, where at least I know I'm free, right? This land is your land. This land is my land, right? All this stuff, right? How are you going to be with that? And this is the same land that has said that we make money off of your oppression, whether you're black or white. We're going to teach you that white's on top and black's on the bottom, but we're going to use it to control everything and everybody. The definition of capitalism is literally a system in which politics and economics is used to control your trade and your industry. That trade and industry is consistently controlled and governed by the private corporation rather than the state. That is the definition of capitalism. Not my definition, not even the original definition, because the original definition is even simpler. It's a system of capital. Whoever has capital is king or queen, right? Just look at what they do, and that's the monarch, right? But no, your definition tells you, right? Your definition defines. Oh, here we go again. You got to draw a line between true racism and racism as defined by the Frankfurt School. Well, once again, racism is a competition race, a competition system. That's what racism is. Now, the competition at one point went from we're trying to get more land and more stuff than other people, that we need to have more slaves. And originally the slaves were not even black slaves. They were originally white slaves, but when they realized black slaves could do more, they started getting slaves. And by the way, their first slaves came from, their first black slaves that you want to deal with, they didn't come from Africa. They came from what you now call the United States of America and Canada. If you don't believe that, all you got to do is look at this at Thanksgiving. Thanksgiving is coming up where everybody's going to give all this love and stuff to each other. Well, when you go there for Thanksgiving, right, remember that there's going to be the story you were taught from a little child, Squanto. Squanto. His name was Tisquantum. His family was killed off when white people came and raided. I'm sorry to say white, because I know that's not a real thing, but I'm just saying that because that's what we understand these people to be now, right, or comprehend them to be now. Reality is that white doesn't even mean a color. White actually means clear originally, but you know, whatever, we'll leave that there, right? But people we would call white or Eurocentric or European, etc., that were starting to get slaves, they were actually coming here already. They want you to believe that Christopher Columbus was the first. No, they were coming here already. How do we know this? Because Squanto and others were already slaves. Why did Squanto? Now I know you want to say Squanto is the 1600s, Christopher Columbus is the 1400s. Well, we know Leif Erikson was here. We know Chinese people were here. We know Africans were already here. We know we can keep on going and going and going. We know Polynesian people that came here. We know people were already on Turtle Island way before, right? But Squanto is a great example of how well known this was, because Squanto, he spoke English. There was another guy that spoke English before they met Squanto, who you call the Pilgrims came over. Now, why is that important to know? Because Squanto was already a slave. Squanto was an English slave. Before that, he was a Spanish slave. He spoke Spanish, he spoke English, he spoke his original language, he spoke some others before he had been taken, and he spoke another language because when he came back, his whole tribe had been killed, including his wife and his daughter. And the chief was actually afraid of what Squanto was going to do, because he said Squanto was kind of off, because Squanto had become like Sambo. And if you read the actual historical documentation, you'll discover that Squanto basically said, if you'll make me a slave master, I'll help you to make these people your slaves. Right? So you have a system based off of that has literally changed the way people think about each other. Christopher Columbus, when he came over, if you want to go to him, he was literally hitting newborn babies in the head with hammers because he wanted to save money on bullets, while allowing himself and other men, when they weren't having sex with animals and bestiality, he was allowing his men to have sex with little baby girls to the point to where they died because they had such rough sex with them, or to the point to where they couldn't have children later on when they never hit, some of them never hit puberty because they were either worked so hard they couldn't hit puberty, or they were raped so much they couldn't hit puberty. Right? That's real, right? So somebody wants to tell me that racism is not a system based off of color, when you literally will have people talk about evolution, and evolution, when they talk about it, they're usually talking about the fifth definition of evolution, which is macroevolution, dealing with Charles Darwin mostly. And Charles Darwin is going to be somebody who wrote the book, The Origin of Species, The Theory of Evolution, the struggle for survival of favored races, meaning that there is supposed to be a race that evolves from a better animal than others, and that race, when you look at his line, on top of the list is white people, and on the bottom, of course, is going to be the darkest of black people, which leads to his cousin writing a book on eugenics, and somebody taking eugenics and then in France saying we're going to make a whole thing called an IQ test based on what we say intelligence. Intelligence is information. So on the information we hold dear, we will make a separation, which wasn't just black only. It was a separation of what we feel are good white people versus bad white people. Somebody in America saw that, came over to France, studied it, said, I like this, took it back, redid it a little bit, took the test and said, put it in all your schools. And he made it to where it was information that white people had and that certain low-class white people and black people weren't going to have. Therefore, still to this day, if you have a high IQ, according to a test, you have a high IQ because it is things based off of what white people would consider to be intel or information. Right, macro. Well, he observed adaptation, but that's what he's in. Macroevolution, right? Now, microevolution, I believe in all day, right? The sixth one, microevolution, saying that you can have sex with somebody and they'll come out with features similar to yours, but slightly, it doesn't mean they have to look exactly like you. But I don't know if I would call it evolution. You see that? But once again, so people will be in evolution, say, I'm not racist, but it's like, well, don't ever point out macroevolution to me. Well, I don't have faith. Faith versus faith. And I saw the question about tattoos. Tattoos, look, people are going to fight with me on this. I'm not even mad for people who would fight with me against this, in all honesty. So let me just put that out there, right? I want to be honest in this. But I'm going to give you contextual facts. Bible talks about not marking your skin. No matter how much time, somebody will say that means cut into or blah, blah. Well, if you get a tattoo, whether when somebody says, well, I'm putting ink on my skin. Well, yeah, they're cutting into your skin to put the ink there. That's why there's pain. If you have somebody who's doing the needle, you got needle tattoos and stuff. When I see stuff about tattoos, here's the thing. I would just say something on tattoos before we went, because it's really, at the end of the day, if somebody has a tattoo, if you got a tattoo and you didn't know, if you're thinking about getting a tattoo, you're going to get it. I mean, it is what it is. At that point, do what you do. I would just simply say, a lot of times when people get tattoos, they get it to define them. I would simply say, see why you need a tattoo to define you. And if there's something you can do on the inside that would help you to define you more than what's on the outside, right? But so racism is a system, whether you want to believe that race is actually a group of people or not. Racism is something that's real because it's something people are living. It may be real sin, but it's still real. And for us to address things as if racism doesn't exist, watch this. Yahshua HaMashiach himself addressed racism multiple times. And we just act like it didn't exist back then. Because racism doesn't have to be black or white. Racism can be, family to family. But we don't want to act like that. But what is the story? Why does he, even after he finishes telling us Mark chapter 12, verse 20 through 34, hear, O Israel, when he quoted Deuteronomy 6:4, hear, O Israel, Yahweh Elohim, Yahweh Elohim, Aleph, Adon, right? He's one Lord, and you should love him with all your heart, your soul, your mind, and your strength. The second like it is this, to love your neighbors, you love yourself. On those two fall all the other commandments. He didn't say get rid of all the other commandments. He just said on those two. Why was he talking about what we call the Good Samaritan, or the Great Samaritan, I would say, or the Awesome, Amazing Samaritan, right? Or the Samaritan, simply. Why did he talk about that? He was talking about that because they didn't like Samaritans. Because Samaritans were supposed to be, they called them dogs, half-breeds. Think about the names that he later on has a discussion when he has the woman that comes to him and he tests her. He calls her what they always would call her. She comes to him, she says, I've come for healing on behalf of my daughter. And he looks at her, he says, it's not meet, it's not acceptable to give um, scraps to the dogs. He didn't even say to give food to the dog. He said it's not acceptable for me to even give the scraps to the dogs, basically. Like to give you anything off my plate would be unacceptable because you're a half-breed. He literally tested her to see what she was going to do. And you know, what was her response? What was her response? Her response was, well, even the dogs eat the scraps from the master's table. And he said, woman, great is your faith. He says you can see through the nonsense that's going on. Great is your faith. And by the way, he lives in the past, the present, and the future. He already knew what she was going to say. He set the thing up so that everybody would hear it, as much as we keep talking about it arms behind the scene thing. He wanted everybody to see, man, she has a faith that's great. That's why the Centurion Guard thing is amazing. Centurion Guard is not even Israel. He comes on behalf of Israel. He's not even Israel, but he comes on behalf of it. Once again, check this out. He's not Israel. Hear what I'm saying? For people that say that I'm anti-everybody or I'm anti-white or whatever, right? Which we've never dealt with on there. We've never done, but people who want to say that, right? Hear what I'm about to say. Go tweet this. Go, save this and then put it on and then hashtag FindKofi with that or at me on that, right? And all this stuff that y'all do. Take this screen recording. Somebody that's not Israel comes on behalf of Israel and says, look, I'm a man of authority in my culture because I'm under authority. I comprehend authority. I might not comprehend all of your culture, but I comprehend authority. And if Caesar says something over here, the only reason why I have authority is because whatever he says, I do. And when I follow what Caesar says, he authorizes me to have a lot. Therefore, I'm a king over here because I'm under the real king over there. Therefore, I'm not worthy of you because I'm not really in your culture. I don't really support what you do, right? So I'm not even worthy to have you come in my house and my family, right? House family. However, even though we're not in the same family, I do recognize you as a king. Therefore, what? If you just simply decree it, if you just simply speak the healing, I know that whatever you speak, it will happen. And guess what Yahshua's response was? He says, I have never, not I can remember a time. He said, I have never seen such faith, even in all of Israel, of all of my people. I've never even seen anybody get me on that level. Like, you came straight kingdom. You didn't even come in the law, right? But you understood kingdom law. You didn't come in the spirituality. You didn't come in the praising and the shucking and jiving and I got to do the Baptist 2-7. Look, there's a time and place for all that, right? But I'm just saying, like, that's not what you came in today. You came in, somebody needed help. You knew about authority. You know how authority works. And you just simply said, look, if you're supposed to be the king of your people, then just speak a word. The same way that Caesar speaks a word and I have to follow. That if you speak to the spirit, they say that you speak to the spirit, you speak to the wind, you speak to what I consider to be gods and all this stuff. I don't quite get it, but they say that you can heal. Well, if you're who they say you are, then I know enough about this. Speak to your servant. Speak to your brother, speak to your family over there. Make sure that he gets healed because I love him. And I'm coming to you in love. They say you're supposed to be loved. I've heard some sermons and stuff, and I've heard some people talk about you. Well, if you're supposed to be loved, I love this man. You're supposed to be loved. Please transfer what it is here. Now, all he did was just say, man, you know what? You speaking to a king. You came to me. You gave me, you realized the authority that I had. You gave me permission by your own free will. Even without having comprehension, you understood. He says, go back home, and whatever you've asked for today, it'll be done that way when you get back home. And when he got back home, the same hour, the same moment he was speaking to Yahshua, they found out that was the same moment that his servant was healed. It was because it was kingdom. It was because there was a law. Right? It was because he was okay with saying that you're this. He wasn't against the kingdom in somebody else's culture, but then was okay with the kingdom in his culture. Right? I don't know if I have a favorite book of the Bible, just being honest with you. Used to say that or whatever, but I don't think I ever did. I used to say it just because people said, when you write your bios and stuff, you're supposed to write your favorite scripture. So I still write, like the scripture I go to the most is usually Mark chapter 12, verse 20 through 34. So I write that one out. Reality, though, is that the word is holistic. I don't know if I have one piece of scripture, that I love more than anything else. There are some that I speak on more than anything else because I speak on certain things quite often. But I don't know if I have one scripture or one book or anything that I would say that I have. You can't even go to sleep getting this word. Baptist 2-7, somebody laughing at me. You said, we're all eating off Africa's table in the West. He said, why would white people heavily claim Christianity back in the day and then think God supports Racism. Well, once again, Christianity, that's why I'm not a Christian. Christianity, when people use that term, right? The term Christian in and of itself is innocent. Like, we are servants of Christ. That's our organization. Christ, we use that term because people know Christ more than they know Mashiach, or Messiah, right? But Christ simply just means anointed one. So, or anointed, excuse me. He's the Christ because he's the anointed, or the anointed one, so to speak. But Christ just means anointed. But Christian in and of itself should mean to be like the anointed, or like the anointed one. The problem with what has become of Christianity, especially, first of all, before Christianity existed, everything in that Bible existed. So that's one of the biggest things we got to deal with. Is before somebody tried to say we need to be of Christian values, these values are non-Christian. They existed before Christianity. Just keep it at 100, right? Like, if we're going to be, like, I can't be okay with what I'm against, and I can't be against what I'm okay with, right? So we got to be honest. Like, before there was a such thing as a Christian value, there was a biblical value. Before there was a such thing as a biblical value, because biblical just means that they put this book together in the island, or the city of Biblios, right? So because before there was a biblical value, there was a Israelite value. There was a Hebrew value. There was a followers of the way value, right? There was a kingdom value. There was a universal value. There was a natural value, right? We just put these terms on it, like we talked about, was it yesterday or the day before? What did somebody name you? We just go off of this stuff because somebody named it that. So we just go, okay, somebody named it that. We'll just go with whatever they named it. Excuse me, right? You said people at your church say that you shouldn't read the Bible in its entirety unless you're called. Yeah, that comes from Roman Catholicism. That comes from Christianity. Some people hold that belief. Not just in white churches, but in all churches. Not just in black churches, in all churches. Not just in, like, they teach that. That's something that was taught, that, hey, you need to know, you should only live by such and such, or you should make sure somebody else who's there. Now, I do believe that when you come across certain things, you should have a system of, and a certain group of people that are set up to help you with certain things, sure, to make sure that you get culture down. I believe no matter what version of the Bible you're reading, you should know culture before you know the Bible, because when you know culture, you can read it different, right? When you know Paleo Hebrew, you can read it different. When you know even the Hebrew characters, that's why we were at the Hebrew characters class. When you know Hebrew characters, you can read things a lot different. Yeah. He said, one of your greatest joys has been reading the Bible cover to cover. Amen. He said, you can't have discernment if you don't study Yahweh's word, right? And once again, what's the discernment based off of if you're not? People talking about morality doesn't matter. Why do you get to say what morality is? Well, I don't say what morality is. That's like a false argument. That's a straw man, right? It's a false argument. It's not even my argument. It has nothing to do with me. I say that I believe in someone greater than myself. And so when I talk about morality, it has to come from him and not me. And even when I talk about him, then somebody, that's why I said, like, people are okay with what they're against what they're okay. They're trying to lie on you, but they don't want you to misrepresent what they're saying. So here comes something, somebody else comes, oh, why do you call him? Why can't it be she? Him in Hebrew doesn't mean male or female. We don't believe in heaven there's male or female. Matter of fact, you can be a male man or a female man, because man just means spirit. And humus is where you get the male or female from, but even humus or hue doesn't mean male or female. It just means the dirt body. Now, depending on how the Most High either formed or shaped the body, then that's what makes it male or female. And that's why we believe that there's certain things that have to be about your purpose, and you should value certain things and not value certain things when it comes to your purpose as a male or female. But people try to take that and be, so you hate people because they're LGBTQ+. You never heard me say that. Matter of fact, you guys have heard me say outright, when people say, what do you feel about the LGBTQ community? And they be waiting for this long dissertation. You know what I tell them? You guys heard me say, I love you. They ain't ready for that. Or they go, yay, and they think that means that I'm just going to agree with everything that they say. No, I mean, I'm still disciplined when I do, but I can still love you. Like, you have to get to this place of, like, I'm not allowing other people to stop me from who I'm called to be. If I'm against it, I'm against it. If I'm okay with it, I'm okay with it. And for those couple of things that people try to find their little stuff to try and disarm what you're saying, there are certain things that I can be against and okay with. As far as, look, I'm against, well, actually, I'm not okay with it. I can't say that I'm okay with, like we were talking about earlier, what was the big one? Somebody tried to bring up abortion. I'm against abortion, right? But if you come to me and ask me, why do you feel a certain way after the abortion, and you want to talk it through, Even though I'm against the abortion, I'm okay with talking to you. What do I believe about Ruach HaKodesh? I believe that Ruach HaKodesh is not a woman or a man, but as the Bible refers to her as, she's a she. Now, I'm not talking about the modern English and Greco-Roman stuff. I'm talking about how Ruach HaKodesh is mentioned, even in modern Hebrew, referred to as a she. And just like wisdom referred to as a she, I believe that she leads us to all truth. I believe that she uses things that, or brings things to our remembrance. Remembrance does not mean recall. Remembrance means to remember it, right? So if you're dismembered, that means you're not part of the community. If you're remembered, you're part of it. So if there's something in you, then she just basically takes what's in you, and you might have a tough time bringing it to recall because it's not really like attached the way it needs to be. She attaches it to where things that you need will come up in the right moment, right? I believe that Ruach HaKodesh, she is part of Abba and Ba, the Father, the Son, the Holy Spirit. I mean, and I believe that you must be baptized in the name of all three. I believe that you should also make sure that you're baptized in fire. I'm talking about the Holy Spirit, the tongues, etc. So please explain the verse in Revelation about the tattoo. Yeah, you did ask something about that. I'll be honest with you, I didn't study about that the way that I needed to. However, let me try to be obedient. I feel like I'm being led to go there. Is that Revelation? You have to take, can you help me with the chapter and verse real quick? If somebody can help me with that chapter and verse, or Barbara, if you don't mind helping me with that chapter and verse, the answer might be I need to call you or just go over it next time. Because I'm be honest, I haven't. It's 1960. Yeah, okay. Because chapter 20 is when we're getting into this stuff. Because we talked about this stuff before. It's just not in my. Oh yeah. I mean, basically, basically, once we finish with like chapter 16 or so, chapter 17, 18, 19, 20 starts getting to a place where we're starting to see the judgments and everything going through, right? And so as you're starting to see judgment, you're starting to see all these things happening, and then you're starting to see like Satan is put away, and then he's going to be released again after a long period of time when people don't even know about him, so that he'll be allowed one more time to allow people to be tested and stuff like that, and all these different things that are happening. We're in the middle of that. So this is talking about basically, when the Most High comes back. I saw heaven open up. So I'm gonna go to Revelation 19 and verse, what is it, 11? Somewhere around there. Yeah, verse 11. And I saw heaven open, and behold, a white horse, and he that sat upon him was called Faithful and True, and in righteousness he doth judge and make war. Right. So people talking about Yahshua doesn't want us judgment and all this stuff or whatever. Right. So Revelation chapter 19, verse 11 is where I started. And I saw heaven opened, and behold, a white horse, and he that sat upon him was called Faithful and True, and in righteousness he doth judge and make war. His eyes were as a flame of fire, and on his head were many crowns, and he had a name written, right, that no man knew but he himself. So he had an authority that no other spirit, no other human being could even ascertain, but he knew what it was. All right, so that's right. Now, verse 13, and he was clothed with vesture, right? So he was clothed with a vesture. Catch that word right there. He was clothed with a vesture. I don't even think we discussed this part in the Revelation series last time, so when we bring it back up this time, we'll make sure that we sit on this a little more too. But he was clothed in a vesture. He was clothed in a vesture. All right? So even without knowing what vesture is, right, without even going deep into that, he was clothed in what? In a vesture. Okay? All right, you got that? So he was clothed in what? A vesture. Hold on to that. So he was clothed in a vesture, dipped in blood, and his name is called the Word of Elohim. That's why we say, when people say Yahshua is the Word, right, we're literally saying that was his nickname given. This is John, who said, this is the same, remember, this is John the Revelator, Yochanan, etc. This is John the Revelator. This is the same John that wrote, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with Elohim. The Word was Elohim. The same was Barashit. The same was in beginning. right? So this is the same John telling you in a whole nother book, and therefore being consistent, saying this is what we know him as, the Word. So when you talk about the Word, it must be the same as talking about the Son. Okay, so he says, and his name was called the Word of Elohim. He has an authority that no man really can get except him. Just like it says earlier in Revelation that it says that we're going to have, or I don't think it's earlier, it might be later, but, forgive me right now, but, it has that part talking about that there's a stone with your name, your authority that's written on it that no man will comprehend except you and the Most High. Right, so there's an authority that says that nobody on earth is really going to get about you except the Most High. They'll try, right, and they'll try their best, but some people aren't never really going to be able to figure you out. But basically nobody except the Most High is going to have a certain type of relationship. Well, it says there's an authority he has that you don't know. You won't get it, right? No, hear what it's saying. So it was on the vesture, right? We're not there yet, Sister Barbara. You know how this works. Give me a second. I got you. I know you already hit that, but watch this. We're about to get there, right? So it was on the vesture. It says he was wearing a vesture. Matter of fact, let's just go ahead and make sure that we make this clear, because I feel like if I don't do due diligence on this, somebody's going to miss this, right? So give me a second. Let me just go ahead and look this up real quick. We're going to go to, I want to make sure that we get this correct. Revelation, and we're in chapter 19. And we're just going to look up what it means when it says vesture. Let's just make sure we get this together. Revelation chapter 19, verse 13. It says that he was clothed in a vesture. This vesture was dipped in blood, representing the sacrifice that he gave and how he gave all of his blood. Right? So let's look up this term vesture real quick. So vesture means a garment. A garment. Right? A cloak. A tunic. An upper garment. Right? So this is not, right, like what I'm wearing now is not a shirt. It is a vesture. It is a cloak. It is a garment. All right? So this is what we're dealing in, okay? So he was wearing what? A cloak, a vesture, okay? All right. And it says in the arm, so let's just stay with it. And and his name was the Word of Elohim. He's known, his authority is the Word of Elohim, okay? Right? And then verse 14, and the armies which were in heaven followed him upon white horses, clothed in fine linen, white and clean. So they were the ones wearing these white, or the word white would be bright or clear linens, right? But he's wearing one that's red. He's wearing one that's red, right? The vesture, what he's wearing, the outfit he's wearing, if you will, is dipped in blood and is red, okay? Verse 15, and out of his mouth goes the sharp sword, right? And with that, just smite the nation. So whatever he speaks, his word, he is the word, right? And just like Ephesians chapter 6 talks about, that, we should have the spear or the sword, right? Which represents the word of Elohim, right? So he speaks the word of Elohim because he is Elohim, that he should smite the nations, and he shall rule them with a rod of iron, and he treadeth up the winepress of the fierceness and the wrath of the Almighty Elohim. Now here's where we get to the question. Right, and it says, and he hath on his vesture and on his thigh a name written, King of Kings and Lord of Lords. So here's a quick thing to get then. So it says his vesture, which is really the upper cloak, right? But then it also says he has on a whole outfit, right? He has on a whole outfit ready to go to war, right? So a lot of us take this to mean that it says he had it on a shirt, but then we're saying somehow, some way, he had his thighs exposed. Even though he's dressed in full regalia, somehow, some way, he had his skin out. And on his skin was tattooed, right? It was a tattoo, right? The tattoo says what? The tattoo says King of Kings and Lord of Lords. But it says he had it on his shirt and he had it on his thigh. But we take it to be, well, his thigh was exposed. Now, question, which one of you know somebody dressed in full regalia to go to war, chain metal and everything, right, has their thigh hanging out, right? You said linen has a high frequency, but it neutralized when worn with wool. Yeah, it's amazing. I mean, right? Like think about what I just said, right? We don't get the context, right? We say he was in full regalia, and it basically says his shirt. Like, have you ever had a shirt? Have you ever bought an outfit where the shirt has a saying on it, and the pants will have a saying on it too, right? It's got the Nike swoosh up here, and then it's got the Nike swoosh on your thigh or whatever, right? And then you got the Nike swoosh on your socks, and the Nike swoosh on your shoes, and the Nike swoosh on your hat, because forbid that you actually wore stuff from different companies. Right, like that's the thing that black community, that's a no-no. If you gonna wear Adidas, everything Adidas today. Right, you better have some Adidas tissues in your pocket. You better not even have some Kleenex. Everything got to be Adidas. Right, but like but whatever, right, but that's what's going on here, right, is that he has got his vesture on, his clothing on. Then it says he has what? So his shirt is his vesture, right, his cloth, his tunic. And then on the bottom, he has, what we call pants. Now, really, he wouldn't even had pants more than likely, because in this picture he would have been given, he probably would have seen him not in pants, but he would have seen him in, I guess we would call, I guess we call it what it was called, a skirt. He would have had on his tunic, he would have had on his skirt, right? And on the side of the skirt, you would have seen King of Kings, Lord of Lords. On his tunic, you would have seen King of Kings, Lord of Lords. Now, the assumption that's made by people is that this has to be a tattoo. But it's not. If we just read it, right? It's not. How you doing, Tulian? Thanks for being on. Right? And we can keep on reading. Verse 18, or verse 17, and I saw an angel standing in the sun, and he cried out with a loud voice, saying, all of the fowls that fly in the midst of heaven, come get. Okay, so that's going a little somewhere different. But basically, so we see twice in the word that it's just telling you right there. We started Revelation chapter 19, verse 11. We went through verse 16, verse 13 talks about the tunic, right? And then it mentions it again and says this time it wasn't just written on his tunic, but it was written on what he had on his lower side. So for most of us, our mindset is, oh, he had to have a tattoo. That's not what it was talking about. Right, but you're going to find people that use that and say, oh, see, you don't even know what your word says. You talk about you're not supposed to have a tattoo, but Yahshua, your Savior, had a tattoo. And people go, oh, you're right. It does say it's on his thigh. It doesn't say it was on his thigh. It said that it was, it says it was on his thigh, yes, but he could have been wearing something on his thigh. Why do we think somebody went ready for warfare and that they had something written on his shirt here, but all of a sudden he was like buck naked from the pants down? You know what I'm saying? Like he had clothes on the top, but he was buck naked on the bottom. Like, I don't know, but that's because once again, we end up, because of not just knowing things or thinking about reading the whole thing holistically, or even culturally, just seeing what is culturally going on at the time. Right now, I could say, now if it was like, for example, if this was a Zulu warrior and it said it was written on his thigh, then we could have that conversation. We would then have to say, yeah, maybe it's possible it was written on his thigh. Right? Also, yeah, vesture means covering. It means tunic. It can also mean, like, once again, robe. Oh, yeah, robe. So it could be a robe. So when I wear, you guys have seen me in this stuff, but let me, just to make this point real clear, hold on one second. I'm going to grab a vesture. I'm going to grab a tunic. I'm going to grab a cloak real quick to show you what I'm talking about. And forgive me, this one doesn't have the skirts on it and everything, but it is what it is. Let me find it real quick. Hold on. I thought it was over here. But it doesn't look like it's over here. Hold on. I just want to show you. You guys have seen me wear this already, but let me just show you the whole thing so we can make this point real quick. All right. So here we go. Thank you for waiting, those who waited. All right. Here we go. So here's a tunic. Right? Here's a cloak. All right. You see this? So here's a cloak. And look how long it goes. Right? I don't have the space to really stand up with it, but maybe you can see, right? And if I were to keep on going and going, let me put my leg up. Right? You see it would cover the bottom of my legs, right? So it says that he was wearing a vesture, a tunic. Thank you very much, right? So he was wearing a vesture, he was wearing a tunic. And when it says somewhere in here, somewhere on the top, It said King of Kings and Lord of Lords. And then it said if you kept on looking down as he would have been writing, right? Now, there's two ways we could look at this. I don't have my what we would call pants part of this, right? But he as a king would probably be wearing a tunic similar to this, right? And as he was wearing it, so you would have been wearing something similar to this. And then even if he didn't have a tunic that just kept on covering all the way down, like I have some, even if it had a slit in it, right, he would have something underneath him to protect him on his legs, right? But also probably over that or under that, depending on how he wanted to look, how the king wanted to look. Even if you lifted up the slit, there would be pants. We would call them pants today that would come down that would cover him as well, right? So on either this and then this later on, or this and then pants that he would have been wearing, or even chainmail that he would have been wearing, or whatever we want to call it, he would have had his name written in two different places. But it doesn't mean it was on his skin, right? The vesture is talking about, this is a vesture. Specifically the type of vesture they would have worn when he's making this statement, right? So when he's speaking on this vesture, that's what he's talking about. He's talking about he had a vesture on. That's what he's speaking about. He's speaking about a specific one. You said you got your on now? I'm in, right? He's talking about a specific thing. So, when we're talking about the vesture, that's what he's really saying. So when you're talking about you're trying to make it a tattoo, it wasn't a tattoo. I mean, I guess you could say it's a logo of sorts. It said King of Kings, Lord of Lords represented his brand, so to speak, or his kingdom, or who he was. But that's what it was. And even if we want to go there, we're still talking about a vision to help you comprehend what's going on. Talking about that his name. Now, watch this. Here's the interesting thing too that we don't get. If it was on the top of the vesture, right? One more time, this is a vesture. Now look, and when you're dealing with vestures that go into royalty, right? Vestures that deal with royalty, you're going to have something that's going to be placed in the area of the heart, in the center, right? Even though I know some of argue the heart is actually over here a little bit more, okay, right? But you know what I'm saying. You're going to have something to be placed on the heart, right? But then also, when you talk about on the vesture, you're going to have something a lot of times that's placed on the side, right, on the thigh. Now, why is that on the thigh? And why is that important, especially in Hebrew culture? Well, because we have something in our culture, right? It could have been a sash for his thighs. It could have been a lot of different things, right? So it could have been a sash, but regardless how we're getting there, we're talking about clothing. We've established that. Now, check this out. This is where you really need to get into it. If we're talking about the thigh in Hebrew culture, it's important that thigh is there. There's something that we have. We don't do it anymore because we get away from our culture. And now, if we did this to each other as men, somebody would be so afraid and into their stuff that they would think you were homosexual. You throw all these terms around. We would think that you were homosexual or whatever for doing so. The reality is that we have a custom in our culture and a tradition that we swear by the thigh. Right? We put our hand under someone's thigh, right? To be able to swear. So if you say you swear it, like somebody be like, man, swear it. Somebody back then would have put their hand on your thigh and said, I swear. Why did we do that? Because we got to make sure we present that correctly, right? So why would we do that? Why would we do that? Right? The reason we would do that is because that Jacob, who we now call Jacob, who we now know as Israel, Yashriel, he actually wrestled with an angel. He wrestled with an angel all night long. He said, I'm not going to leave you alone until you bless me. The angel can kill him or smite him because the angel knows that that's who the promise was supposed to come through. Right? Oh, thank you very much. So appreciate you. Right? So he can't smite him. So what does he do? He finally gets him off and he touches his side. His sinew gets messed up. It shrinks a little bit and he walks with a limp for the rest of his life. Right? All right. Appreciate you for being on. Be safe out there. Right? So he walks with a limp for the rest of his life. Right? But it was a sign that he had been blessed and he was no longer Jacob. He really was Israel from that point on. And that limp that a lot of us still carry, right? We're against the limp right? But you better learn how to be okay with some of the things you're carrying, because it's a sign that you've been touched, a sign that the glory was there, right? And so he was wrestling with them. He said, I'm not leaving till you bless me. And so finally, boom, touched him. Okay, fine, I'm blessed with something, but they're going to be paying. You were fighting against me. There's discipline that comes for this. But at the end of the day, like, you're going to carry this thing. And so we swear by the thigh. Because if it's like, okay, you swear you're going to do this, fine. Swear you'll be a blessing. When somebody puts the hand on the thigh, they're like, swear you'll be a blessing. That's what you're really saying. Like, swear you're going to be a blessing. Right? Other people take this and go to the hand and the handshake, and we do the dap and all that stuff. But, boy, I know we be afraid and uncomfortable to do this because we've been so brainwashed into believing that people are all trying to touch us inappropriately and stuff. And some nowadays, maybe you got to be, right? But in our culture, if things were pure as they were supposed to be, you would actually swear by the thigh. Right? You would swear by the thigh. Matter of fact, can we just keep it 100 real quick? Can we be adults? Right? If you're coming up on somebody, you're coming up on your wife, right? You're coming up on your husband, you give him a hug or something, you come from behind and you hug him, but sometimes you might do what? You might grab him by the thigh. And they like when you grab him by the thigh. It's a place of security. It's a place of like you holding me in place. Nobody else is allowed to touch me there except you. And when you touch me at the thigh, I feel a certain way about it. I feel like you holding me down. If I'm mad at you when you try to touch me at the thigh, I don't want you to touch me there. Why? Because I don't believe that you're trying to do something that's a blessing to me. I feel like you're against me. Hey, deja vu usually means that you're in a spiritual place. Spirit is outside of time. So, that's what it could mean. I don't know how you're outside of time, but you had a moment outside of time where you saw this before, or you see this now, or you see them both at the same time, because time is an eternity, right? But think about that. Like, that's what it was. Now, even before then, though, if you remember when Isaac was dying, he swore underneath the thigh, right? So that's why it's on the thigh, right? That's why it's located over the heart. That's your passion, but then on the thigh, he's going back to something that was traditional that even goes back past Israel. That's a Hebrew culture and tradition that goes into other cultures as well. That, hey, man, if you swear it, swear it, right? Like, even think about it, like we do this stuff. We have the DNA memory of this, so we keep this stuff even without knowing we're keeping it, right? Like if somebody's coming up on me and I got my gun, whether it was when I was in the military, or when I was doing police work, or when I was, short version of police work, and mostly military police work, if I'll be honest, very, very little civilian. But if somebody came on me, guess what I'm going to do? I'm going to stand back and put my hand out. I'm going to touch my thigh. What's on my thigh? My gun. I'm going to let you know that's a position of, hey, like he touching his thigh. He got something for you, ain't messing around. Right? Like, you see what I'm saying? We do these things we carry them. We don't even know why we carry them because we don't study what's going on. But the reality is, it's like we know this stuff already. We live this stuff every day. We live this stuff every day. You know it. You just don't know that you know it. You're intimate with it. You're just not intimate that you're intimate with it, if that makes sense. And like we talked about last night, right? You are what you know. You said, was that bad because he swore? to swear, when somebody says swear word now, they're talking about swearing through cursing. I'm going to curse on you. I'm going to swear by what I curse upon thee. That's why a curse word is bad, right? But we do these things without even thinking about it, right? When you really listen to really intent, or like you really trying to get yourself together with something, right? When you're tired, you put your hands on your knees, right? But when you're ready, even if you're tired, but you're still dedicated, you're ready to get it done, where do you put your hands? Right? The superhero pose. You know the superhero pose. Hands on your hips, right? Elbows stuck out, hands on your hips. I'm ready. Right? Right? So that's what so we got to understand, hopefully Sister Barbara answered the question. If not, you can contact me. We can talk about this more, right? But, hopefully you got, so he was wearing a vesture. And this was what his vesture or his tunic would have looked like. And even if this one, there's other ones I have that don't have the split. So he might not have had a split. It might have just been one consistent thing. But even if it had a split and you could see his leg underneath, where his leg would pop out, you would see his, you would have seen his name. on his leg. It doesn't mean it was on his foot. He wouldn't be. Now think about it. He wouldn't be in full king regalia and just have, and have all the stuff and just have no, just drawers on or have his wrap or whatever underneath, but have nothing, on his legs. Right? And there you go. Yeah, the legs are strong muscle. Matter of fact, the reason why you're putting it there, in all honesty, is because what's the biggest muscle in your body? Right? Somebody answer me that. Right? What's the biggest muscle in your body? Y'all know this. Y'all be thinking that brothers are attached to something or whatever. See, even brothers are attracted to what holds them down. People think that it's bad to look at it or think that you're homosexual to look at this. What's the biggest muscle in your body? No, that's the biggest. You could say that's the biggest organ. I'm talking about what's the biggest, what's the biggest muscle in your body? What's the difference between garment? I mean, a cloak is a type of garment. I mean, there's no different. There you go. My wife said it. The gluteus maximus, the butt, the thigh connected to the butt. So when you swear by the thigh, and hey, shalom, baby, thanks for being on. When you swear by the thigh, you're swearing basically by what's connected to the butt. That was what they swore by, right? They swore by that. And that's where, when they were fighting, they were wrestling or whatever, like the angel hit him in the thigh, right? He walked with a limp and his muscle attached there. So his whole, whenever Jacob walked for the rest of his life, there was this reminder that he was fighting against the Most High, but also that he got blessed because he kept fighting through. And there's some things that we're carrying as we get ready to close, right? A lot of us are limping through. Don't be ashamed of your limp, right? People say, don't limp in public. Don't let your light shine in public. No. Hey, this is my story. I did this. I was bad in this. There's people's story out there. They murdered people and they preach from pulpits today. I'm so glad that they teach people about they're killing somebody because they teach young people that it's not worth it. And they tell people every day that it hurts them when they have to think about what they did to somebody's family. And they cry in front of people. No matter how many times they tell the story, I'm thankful that they do that. You can judge them all day long, but some of y'all done kill people with your tongues every day for a living. Right? There's some people who come on here constantly, consistently looking to do nothing more than just tell us why we're wrong for believing and having faith in something when they have faith in something that's less value than what we carry. Right? And we thought walking with a limp was cool back in the day. I used to have my walking with a limp thing. I hung out with everybody. So I had sometimes where I had my walking in attention, and I had sometimes when I was walking, in a way that wasn't threatening. And then I had sometimes where, I had the little limp. I can still do it every once in a while. Sometimes it naturally comes out. I don't even mean to do it. I'll be walking. I'll be thinking. I'll realize, wait a minute, like, I kind of, I'll be in a certain neighborhood or something. I'm trying to make sure my family's great, whatever. And I'm like, oh, I got to make sure I'm going into protection mode. By the way, it is time to take our leave as far as we can't do any more than 2-hour podcasts through Podbean. So those of you who are on now, I'm just going to get ready to disconnect us in a little bit. So I want to say thank you to you guys for being on the podcast. If you're on the podcast, if you're on YouTube, recognize and realize that you can join us or you can get in contact with us with what's written in the description box. So any video that we put out there, any podcast we put out there, just look in the description box, contact us, get in contact with us if you would like to know more about us. I told you guys, if you're on TikTok, feel free to go ahead and look us up. Just DM us, and I'll get back to you as soon as possible. The DMs are a little interesting because the way TikTok has it set up, if we're not friends already or we haven't had conversation before, it doesn't really show me your DMs. Every once in a while, it'll give me a bunch of them, and it'll basically ask me it'll give me hundreds of them and say, do you want to go through these one by one and say if you can want to talk to these people or not? And then I have to friend everybody to talk to them, and then I got to figure out if I want to friend you or not. There's a lot of different weird stuff that happens. So, but just get in touch with us. Let us know what you're interested in. Here's the information above my head that won't be seen on the other places, or that will be able to be seen on the other places. This is the number to text us at. This is the website if you want to get more information about us, Kofi-40.com. Hashtag FindKofi. Remember, this is our year of pursuit. We're pursuing the promises of the Most High. And if you would like to pursue promises with us so that when we hit Passover next year, we can transition. Once December hits, we can use this 3-month or so, 4-month or so transition to be able to go from this year of pursuit to living in what we pursued. Right? You can go to YouTube channel, go hashtag FindKofi, hashtag FindKofi to be able to find out things. If you have questions there, just contact us. But we thank you, everybody who's on. We appreciate you. And it's probably going to, the podcast is probably going to stop soon. Yep, it just stopped. So we thank you all so much. You said you can't see it. Okay, I'll pull my head back again. You can see the number. You can see the website. Hashtag FindKofi, FindKofi. If you want to give some kind of donation to things we're doing, first, I always advise go to the website, see what we're about. Contact us first to see what's going on. And then if you do, we have more than just Cash App, but the Cash App we actually have on our in our bio. For the YouTube, for the podcast thing. So feel free to do that. But we also have other ways if you want to donate. Besides that, we also are interested not just in your money. We love for you to put time, talent, effort, energy, goods, things like that to help us to be able to produce things as a community. We're in the middle of getting land together. If you want to be part of that mission and that goal and figure out what you can help us with once we even get the land. So if you could build things, do certain things like that, we're ready to make this move and we're excited to make it. We are invested in it all the way. And we're going to put everything that we can towards it to make sure that it happens the way that the Most High says it's supposed to happen. So thank you all for being on. We appreciate you. Thank you for all your questions. And hopefully we've shown that a lot of things that we are, unfortunately, we say that we're against, we seem to be okay with it through our actions. And a lot of things we say we're okay with, we seem to be against with our actions. Right? That means that we're human beings, and it simply means we need to crucify our flesh daily. It means we need to be honest about accountability, self-accountability. Going back to the Sermon on the Mount, Matthew chapter 7 is where it tells us to stop worrying about, the little toothpick in somebody's eye, the splinter in somebody's eye, and you've got this beam hanging out of yours, right? Make sure that you're not blind leading the blind. Make sure that you know the culture. Make sure that you're aware of certain things. And we don't mind being a place where you can come and be in an environment where you can learn and grow. Understand here, right? If you're going to be here, I need you to stand under this principle. Understand this here. I am not here to be in charge of you. I learned a long time ago, I am not in charge of you. That's going to sound wild to some because they're like, well, how can you be a pastor or a head or ecclesia or a priest or whatever without being over somebody? How are you going to be a rabbi and not be? No. A rabbi is a teacher. You could be a master. A master is a teacher, right? I'm a master of an environment, and anybody who wants to come into the environment and be a leader in the environment, we're asking for you to come on and be that. So if you want to be a leader in the environment, come on in and be a leader in the environment. Right, a koheleth or a pastor, by the definition, the thing defined, the fine print, so to speak. The definition of a pastor, so to speak, is basically to be an assembler. I just say, hey, you got this? Come on, bring it in here. We need that. Hey, you got this? Come on here, bring it in here. We need this. And my goal is to make sure that you have everything that's necessary, right? Or at least to begin to develop an environment that can help you to help us to grow things that are necessary. That all we can do is just come in and bring our gifts together and be different parts of the puzzle piece that we might grow, right? So if you'd like to be a part of that in any way, shape, or form, we'd love to have you. Our classes are going on right now. It's getting up pretty much close to where we might not be able to allow you to join new classes or whatever. So I would say, if you want to join in now, or if you just want to wait until some of these classes come back next year, first semester of next year will be starting in January. So if you want to be a part of what we're doing, right now we're in the midst of marriage, monarchy, sovereignty, natural medicine 1, fibroid cyst, Hebrew characters. We have other classes that we do as well, and the other classes that will be coming. One of the new classes that will be coming will be Hebrew language 1, and we're going to be doing Paleo Hebrew, and we're going to be doing original for our people. So we're not going to be concerned about, I'm going to use some modern Hebrew to show some things here or there, but it's not my concern to make sure that you're speaking a bastardized form of Hebrew. And I'm sorry to say it that way, but it's not from the Father. Therefore, a fatherless form of Hebrew. We're here to worry about what was actually original so you can read the stuff for yourself. Sisters, don't forget December 18th is fast approaching. December 18th. December 18th is that's what I was doing. Remember I was saying I couldn't figure out if it was 16th or 18th? It's December 18th, but it's at 6 o'clock p.m. Eastern in New York time. That's what I was doing in my head. That's why I couldn't remember. All right. December 18th, which is Saturday, third Saturday it should be, of December. Women in Red, sisters come together wearing your red in solidarity. It's an Afrocentric, spiritual, biblical format where we put some things out to be able to make sure that we bless the people of the Most High. Tomorrow we'll be on the podcast. Early Shabbat Shalom to you guys. Tomorrow we'll be on the podcast. We'll have Minister Kevin on. We'll have our last conversation dealing with what men should be and who we should be, and Yah's, what Yah has for us. And we'll just go through that from 9:15 a.m. to 9:45. If you want to join us live for that, you have to have the Podbean app. If you want to just listen to it at any time, just get the Kofi of 40 podcast wherever you can find it and just listen. But if you would like to join us live for that, you have to have the Podbean app, Podbean. And that's every Saturday we do a Shabbat Shalom. As soon as we finish our stuff for the men, we're going to go straight into our sisters, right? And maybe after that, I don't know, we might even do a little bit of something with the children and have, Master Solomon on to be able to speak and present some things. However, I thank you guys so much. You guys have been a blessing to us. Don't forget, we're getting ready to do baptism. So starting, well, I guess kind of sort of next week. I won't be intense with it until the week after next week, but starting next week, I'm really going to be, I'm going to start writing down a lot. I'm going to have my little boards and stuff set up, and I'm going to start investing and making sure, okay, who wants to get baptized in the name of Yahweh Yashvai Ruach HaKodesh, right? Who wants to be, who's going to meet up with us in these places when we start traveling, and here are the times and dates when you guys say, hey, we're going to show up, or I live in this area, and so I'll show up a couple days here or there, whatever. Well, fine. Here's the times and dates, and then we can start having these meetings. We're going to start having the meetings starting, November 6th, so starting November 13th. So starting November 13th, right after Shabbat Shalom will be at its old time again. I won't say that old time to confuse you from tomorrow 9:15 to 9:45, but we'll have our stuff, and then immediately following Shabbat Shalom, right? We're gonna go right into our meetings, our weekly meetings that we'll have, and so we're gonna start laying stuff out. And before that means people who were looking for places for us and gonna help us to be able to do stuff, and gonna help us even to find a place to stay, because, like I said, we're gonna put this out there. We're gonna trust the Most High. Yashvai, when he sent people out 2 by 2, he said, go out there, and he said, just go into the community, and he said, there are gonna be people that are gonna let you in, and you're going to be able to trust them. And we know you guys now. We have a bond with you guys now. And some of you have said, hey, if you come by, just let us know. Okay, like, we're going to trust you. We're going to have you keep your word, right? And we're going to ask for you guys to help us with certain things that we're doing. And we're going to be honest about what things are going to happen. We're going to be honest about what I can and can't afford out of my pocket, depending on how much travel and stuff we have to do. I'm going to be honest about it. We're going to be real about it. And we're going to make this thing flow. We're going to make this thing work, right? So, feel free to be with us. Feel free to be all in with us. We want to make sure we have us as a people, not just when I'm in town or something like that, but us as a people. Let's start making sure that we're meeting up with each other on a regular basis. It doesn't have to be in the church form or anything like that. It can be over somebody's house. It can be, we're going to go over to a restaurant. It can be, our children will have a play date and we'll all meet up. It can be, we're going to go and we're going to play some spades and stuff. Now, spades, I don't know, because spades, that's difficult to play in love. Right? Spades, Uno, something like that, bid whist, whatever we're going to play. Tonk, whatever. Dominoes, bones. It might be difficult to play that stuff in love. I don't know. But whatever we're gonna do, we're gonna try to find a way to make it in love, right? I kid, right? Y'all might see a little different side of Pastor Kofi. I'm not gonna call you out your name or act stupid or nothing, but you might see me act a little different when it comes to spades. I don't know. I don't know if I can play spades in love yet. Y'all pray for me. But whatever we do though, let's start making it a point to come together as often as we can. And that's what we're going to, like we said, this is our year of pursuit. We're going to hashtag finish strong in this year of pursuit. We're pursuing the promises of the Most High. Next year, we got to start living in what we pursued, right? This isn't a game. Like, we're going to make this stuff happen. We're going to make sure it happens correctly, right? We're going to make sure that we do this stuff. You say you don't know if you can do it either. Yeah, so I'm just saying, so, we're going to play in love. Just don't, all right, look, watch this. Check this out. We're going to play in love. Just don't renege, right? And I'll make sure that my wife is ready. Yeah, I'll make sure my wife is ready for y'all too. That's gonna be my spades party. We're gonna mess all y'all up. All right? Just don't renege. If you're gonna end up my partner someplace, or you're gonna be my wife's partner when I have her ready for y'all. All right. And when we come together, and if y'all happen to be one of our partners, just don't renege. Because if you renege, that's the only time I can't show you no love. Right? Like we be funny with the renege thing. Let somebody renege, right? And you my partner, like, I could have known you could be my mama, and I'm about to dress you down. I saw somebody, a comedian, make a joke. I don't even know if he was joking. The way he said it didn't even seem like he was joking. He said somebody reneged, and he said like this dude. He said the dude stood up and slapped the other dude across the cheek. Right? And they were boys. And he's like, they knew each other 15 years. And he just slapped him across the cheek. And he was like, the dude that got slapped was like 6'6" and like 250 of muscle. But it's like he took the slap from the dude who was like 5'10" because he knew he reneged. And in spades, you know you're supposed to take it. I said, and I couldn't, and you know what's funny? I couldn't even tell if he was joking because I was like, I could actually see somebody do that in the game of spades. That's how crazy spades get. We got to pray for ourselves. We would get crazy over stuff, right? But, but at the end of the day, like, we talk about these children with the games and how crazy they get and stuff they say over the headset. But real talk, like, we get crazy over spades. We get crazy on Uno. Like, Uno, that was my introduction into spades life. Like, Uno, like, you were allowed to talk to adults like they was trash. Like, I remember being 5, 6 years old and smacking the card down on the adult because I knew that they were going to draw two, draw four, Uno, draw two more, right? And then you walk out on them, right? Like you could talk to adults like they was trash. It's so wild. Stuff that we grew up in. Anyways, though, I appreciate you all. And I appreciate the king and queen in each and every one of you. Our prayer is always that you not be hearers of this word only, be doers as well. Please follow my wife, the Honorable Maya. You can follow her on TikTok, YouTube, and her website at Bloom and Flourish, not A-N-D, but the letter N, Bloom and Flourish. And she's a healer, herbalist, chemist, a biologist by degree, by the way. I know there's a couple people that have told me they haven't received stuff that we sent, so we're going to go and check and see what's going on with stuff on FedEx. That most of that is on me. I take responsibility for that. I'm just letting you know I'm going to check and see what's going on. So let me not say we. I am going to go and check and see what happened. And hopefully we'll be able to get your stuff like to you, if it's not, today or, tomorrow, basically. I apologize for those. There's a couple of us that were behind. There's some people telling me they didn't get letters and all types of stuff. So like I said, I haven't really had the time. Today is somewhat a free day for me. So I'm going to try and catch them on a lot of different things, make some calls today, do a lot of stuff. So just give us some patience, and I apologize. And I thank you guys. Normally, if it wasn't the kind of operation that we have where it would be like a corporation or something, y'all probably be saying, give me money back, and be saying that we're bad on the business bureau and doing all types of stuff. So I appreciate your patience with us. Just hang in there. I promise you, like I say, come Monday, I'm back to, I got free time during the day to make sure that we're in this all the way we're supposed to be. I appreciate you all, though. Thank you so much. I appreciate the king and queen in each and every one of you, even if you're not living inside that kingdom queendom yet. I appreciate the potential king and queen in each and every one of you. As always, this has been Pastor Kofi, aka the Shadow Band One, Pastor Servant of Christ, where we are always changing lives one mind at a time by being the voice of the voiceless and speaking the unspoken until I have the great privilege, opportunity, and responsibility of being in front of you all again. Please remember, as always, that you are loved, you are necessary, you are majestic, you are fearfully, wonderfully made, and you, which is all of us working together, will be the reason why people who are in the system no longer have to be of it. Shalom, people. Shalom, fam. Just in case I don't see you this evening, Shabbat Shalom. Peace.